Well, good evening. Welcome to the November 20th meeting of the Boulder Housing Advisory Board. I'm Michael Lucchese, the chair of the Housing Advisory Board. This is our combined end of year meeting. So the November and December meeting are being combined into tonight. And we have a great agenda that I'll go over in a minute. And it's also our first meeting that's been fully open to the public instead of just the public zooming in. And we do have at least one member of the public present. We'll get to that shortly. So calling the meeting order, and we'll do some roll call. So Karen Clearman, Vice Chair. Corinne Hoskin.
Here.
Stephen Chip Hennessy.
Here.
Julianne Ramsey.
Here.
Philip Ogren.
Here.
Danny Teodoro. And he is not here, but we have a quorum with 6 members present. And Danny, you're not on the screen by any chance.
He's on Zoom.
He's on the Zoom. Oh, okay, Danny, we have a full 7 for 7. Great. So we have a full agenda tonight and a couple of really important issues to address. We have Carl Geiler from the city to go over some zoning updates related to housing. That'll be really interesting. After we approve the minutes, the next item on the agenda will be public participation. There may be some people commenting on the Zoom as well, but we have at least one person here to comment in person. That's item 4. Item 5 is matters from the board, and that's where Carl Geiler will be presenting the update on family-friendly, vibrant neighborhoods, expanding housing choices. With some questions for the Housing Advisory Board. This is a policy update that's been in progress for quite some time. Have this had the opportunity to weigh in it as it evolves, and we'll have a chance to do that again. The planning board went over it last night, but it's not much that meeting. So we'll have board questions. We can have additional public comment after Carl's presentation. So if you're here to talk about family-friendly, vibrant neighborhoods, you should wait until that portion of the agenda. And then we'll have a board discussion and a potential decision if we actually want to make a recommendation on any element of the new policy. So then we'll discuss, this will be back to Carl Geiler, update on occupancy and ADU changes required by state law. That's an informational item we will not vote on. And then we've had a discussion about continuing and building upon our good relation with City Council by doing a quarterly update to City Council at their meetings. We could basically tell them what we've been talking about. For example, recently we looked at solutions to homelessness and a lot of the summer and the fall, looking at that. It'd be an opportunity for other members of the board to appear before council and build upon council relationships. So it's a proposal. We can decide if we want to commence doing that or not, but I think it's a good idea. Item 6, matter from staff. At the request of Chip Hennessy, staff did prepare a 1-page summary of sales and use tax. The purpose of that is to potentially look at ways of using tax incentives to encourage affordable housing. So that's information for us that we might be able to use. And then when there is a special event, I hope you will all attend on December 4th. I believe it's at the OSMP building on 55th Street. And it's called Transforming Input into Impact. That's at 5:30 on December 4th. It's also an opportunity for us to get together during the holidays and celebrate each other and the work we've been doing and have last year and more. Item 7, debrief the meeting and calendar check. We hope that'll happen by 8:50, and then we'll adjourn at 9 p.m.
How do we add a topic to the agenda?
Excuse me?
Okay, how can we add a topic to the agenda? Or isn't there like a board, like the questions or contributions from the board,
Part of the review of the agenda.
So that would happen now.
So we got a request by Hannah Davis from the Environmental Advisory Board to adopt a plant-based by default approach of food to our meetings. Do we want to chat about it? I mean, it basically says, I think that plant-based meals are a default catering option while attendees can still choose meat and dairy, which sort of feels like what we do already, but I don't mind. I don't mind like saying that we agree.
I don't have any problem with that as long as I can still have a piece of chicken.
Oh, are we talking about whether we're going to talk about it or we're just gonna start weighing in?
Right now, it's just whether or not you want to talk about it.
I would like to talk about it.
So you just add it to the agenda.
For today or for next month,
Your choice.
Well, we have to approve the minutes for.
Make a motion.
There you go. Do it, Karen.
I make a motion that we have a brief succinct discussion of whether we want to adopt a plant-based by default approach to food at our meetings that might also include meat and dairy. To be supportive of the Environmental Advisory Board.
I was confused. Are we talking about it now?
No.
No. Okay.
I will second it to the extent that we address it at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
I would, adding to that, I would suggest we add it to the end of matters from the board. Okay, so remind me. Great.
Michael,
Yeah.
we had something on the agenda for October to talk about if we were going to do some listening sessions
Mhm.
for the new year. And we were going to brainstorm some potential topics. And because we didn't have the October meeting, but I didn't see that bumped to this month's agenda.
Okay, would you like to make a motion about that to add it to the agenda?
I make a motion to add that to the agenda,
Uh,
to the, I don't remember the wording, I think it was actually to come up with topics. Does anybody remember specifically? To come up with topics for listening sessions in the upcoming year.
Could you say potential topics to couple with that?
Potential topics, yes, I can say
Do we have a second for that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll go right after we talk about plant-based food.
that.
With that, I think we can go to the approval of the minutes from September 25th. I do want to apologize for the cancellation of the October meeting. We're not able to line up the speakers we wanted. It felt like it was best use of everyone's time to postpone that. We did have a gathering to learn about and celebrate and tour the new housing factory at BBSD, which was attended by many, many people and was really impressive. So we're looking forward to seeing concrete progress on affordable housing as a result of our city's efforts to partner with BBSD and make that happen. Also met some of the students, which is really cool. Can I hear a motion to approve our minutes from September 25th, 2024?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from
Right.
September 25th, 2024.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? All right, motion passes unanimously. Okay, it brings us to item 4. Do we need to go back through the railroad before we jump into this?
Anyone online?
We do have one other individual that's welcome.
Okay. Yep, I'll go through the rules just very quickly. A little slow. All right, so the city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. It's to support the emotional and physical safety of community members, staff, and board and commission members. For more information, you can go to our website and view all the details. The following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code. The guidelines that support these visions, these will be upheld during this meeting by our chair. So we request that all remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation. Obscenities, racial epithets, and other speech should behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the meeting are prohibited. And we do request that or require that participants sign up to speak using the name they're commonly known by and to display their whole name before they're allowed to speak online. And although it says currently only audio is allowed, that applies only to online. And then just to reiterate what Michael said, open comment is for any topic other than the public hearing tonight, which is Carl's family-friendly, vibrant neighborhoods.
Thank you, Jay. So do we have anyone who wishes to comment for your 3-minute segment on any matter not related to family-friendly vibrant neighborhoods? Start online.
There's no hands raised.
All right.
Mark?
Well, okay, I guess I will. Hi, my name is Mark Burer. I know a number of you. I am on the tenant advisory committee for the city of Boulder. And also resident commissioner with Boulder Housing Partners. Although I'm not speaking on behalf of either one of those organizations tonight. But I do hope to encourage HAB to work with those or groups, or at least the tenant advisory committee, as I have appeared here before, trying to encourage the housing advisory board to deal more with tenant issues as a housing policy. And I was just looking over the HAB functions, and one of them is to advise city council concerning appropriate advocacy rules. Sorry, that's not it. Consult with and coordinate with housing committees and other city boards and commissions, develop and support the city's housing program. I've been speaking also with city council members who have also expressed interest in wanting to see a more robust set of protections for tenants, and especially addressing affordability issues for tenants. As we all know, the rent is too damn high. And although the state unfortunately prohibits rent control, there are other issues around affordability and tenant conditions that could be, and I feel like should be addressed by the Housing Advisory Board. So I'm hoping we could talk more with committees and Human Relations Commission. I'll just bring up a little historical context. When I was director of the Boulder Tenants Union 40 years ago, we brought a number of our issues to the HRC because the city council at that time did not deal with tenant issues, and they dumped it on HRC. And so we ended up dealing with the HRC quite a bit back in those days. And I have the news articles to prove it, if anybody would be interested in that. So I would just like to see, rather than these siloed attempts at dealing with housing issues, more collaboration. And the Tenant Advisory Committee, which is part of EPRIS, the Eviction Protection and Rental Assistance Services, and what it stands for, has expressed interest in being more collaborative with other organizations and city council members. So I'm just here to encourage HAB again to and should I stand up and say something?
Thank you, Mark. We always appreciate your comments, and it's nice to see you in person. And as the Oscar music indicates, the time is up. But
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Is the tenant advisory committee, do they host public meetings?
Yeah, we have quarterly meetings and we take public comment like you all do here.
I already forgot the name of the other organization.
Boulder Housing Partners.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm on the board of commissioners for this.
are those in-person meetings?
BHP.
Your
Well, no, the tenant advisory committee, unfortunately, I'm gonna be pushing for them because you all have set the example, thank you, Chip, for having more in-person meetings. So I'm gonna be encouraging them to do that too.
Good. Thank you.
Got a hand raise online from another individual. Got Lynn Siegel.
Okay, we ready to move on to item 6, matters
That's a,
Lynn is online now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Lynn Siegel.
Hi, Lynn.
Regarding, you need liaisons, ex officios from the other boards because every board, it's like a finger spread out. All the boards are not in conjunction with each other and need to know what's happening between the different entities. Case in point, the Landmarks Board just agreed to demolition of what was going to be the homeless shelter. Michael will remember this from like 20 years ago when Mark Rusin switched his vote 2 weeks after it was approved to be across from CU and then got stuck up way in North Boulder. That same building is owned by George, I forget his last name, Husseini or something. He's Lebanese. I opposed the demolition of the building. It's a Hobie Wagner, and it is going from 40 units to 222 rent by the bedroom. And and those bedrooms are 2 to 5, 2, 3, and 5 bedrooms. Now you can imagine what the proportion of those might be. A lot of 5 bedrooms, I bet, because they're going to make a lot more money having less infrastructure per person, in a 5-bedroom apartment than in a 2-bedroom apartment. They can charge a little bit less because people are having to share the space. It's kind of more communal, right? But it's still an interesting concept that so much of our housing crisis is related to CU and the intensity of use of this place and the people and the growth. But also the way the housing's structured. Now that Lebanese guy, excuse me, made out big time. He made many millions of dollars by having that thing demolished because it had 40 units before, and like he complained that the sewer was underneath. Well, in New York City, we have sewer too. They have routers that go underground that, I went on the sewer tour. Did any of you go on the sewer tour? You should do it. Check it out. Check out what the infrastructure costs for the city. Go to the reservoir, the water treatment plant, which Rab had a tour there this week. And, these are huge, expensive structures that we have to back ourselves with, and we don't have it. We've got 9,000 units that are coming online that are already approved, and we're looking at the planning reserve, and we're looking at the airport and CU South, and I can name you a list of 50 places, Diagonal Plaza, Macy's, Papilio's, like it's one after the other. We can't afford this.
Thank you, Lynn. Your time is up. We appreciate your comments. And I will note that we do have a liaison from the planning board here at HAB, ML Robles. I should have mentioned that in our introduction. So some of that is happening. And I don't know how much capacity board members would have to do more liaising, but it's an interesting idea. I think we're ready. Are there anyone else waiting for public comment online?
no, their hands are raised.
Great. I think we're ready for item 5. I do want to mention something I should have done up front, and that is we will have an opening on this board in 2025 as Danny Teodoro rolls off. Danny's been our vice chair and has done a great job. We appreciate that. But we would really love to get the whole board involved in thinking about recruitment of a certain skill set. We really feel like we would benefit from having someone with experience in developing affordable or attainable housing on the board, as we did when Terry Pamos was on the board. So if you can think of names, Karen and I are actively doing a little outreach one-on-one to talk to people and fill them out, tell them what HAB does, and get them interested. And we would like to cast a wider net. So any questions? Okay. I think we're ready then to turn it over to Carl Geiler for his presentation on family-friendly, vibrant neighborhoods. This is a public hearing. There'll be additional opportunity for public comment after Carl presents, and as well as questions from HAB and potential board decision on recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, board members. I'm Carl Geiler, Senior Policy Advisor with Planning and Development Services. I'm going to present to you tonight the family-friendly Vibrant Neighborhoods project, so I can figure out what to do with these tiles that keep getting in the way with Zoom these days. It's a little better. So before you tonight is ordinance 8666. We're asking for a recommendation from Housing Advisory Board that we can pass along to City Council on this ordinance. I presented to you all, I think it was back in June, the scope of this project. It grew out of the zoning for affordable housing project, where we brought the last ordinance to make changes to our zoning to loosen up zoning rules to allow more housing in the city. The City Council had made a number of suggestions for additional things to look at, and that became this particular project. So that's what we're here before you tonight. After we talked to Housing Advisory Board in June, we went to Planning Board in September, and then again back to City Council in October to convey all the feedback that we've been getting from the boards as well as the community, and to get specific direction from council on the changes that would be in the ordinance. And they've given us that specific direction, and that led to what we have in the ordinance. So as far as tonight, again, it's the purpose is to have the HAB recommendation that we can convey to City Council. What I'll cover tonight is just briefly, again, going over the problem statement, the project goals, the original suggestions that came from City Council. We didn't get to talk about it last time, but we'll talk about community engagement results that we've heard on this project, and then I'll go into basically the content of the ordinance. Then we'll have the conclusion at the end. So the key issues that we've posed to the board tonight are: does Housing Advisory Board recommend any modifications to the draft ordinance? And then secondly, does Housing Advisory Board find that the proposed ordinance implements the adopted policies of the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan? So basically, with any ordinance that we're bringing through, it's generally meant to implement the comprehensive plan, and has to be found consistent with the comprehensive plan. I think as Housing Advisory Board, you're well aware of the housing challenges that we have here in Boulder. That's pretty acutely felt in Boulder. So we're trying to address it in a number of different ways. Not just zoning, but we've done a lot with zoning the last year or so, where we've been changing the rules to just allow more flexibility in the housing types that we can see throughout the city, adding to the inventory to try to mitigate some of the rising costs. We understand that it's not going to necessarily make everything cheap overnight, but if we can somehow address the growing cost, that's what we're really trying to work towards. So as far as our project goals with this particular project, it's to expand housing choice and supporting transit use by allowing more missing middle housing. So we're not talking about middle income housing, we're talking about middle housing, which is a housing type. So in the United States, and I think you're all aware of this, like we see a lot of single family detached homes, and we see apartment buildings or condo buildings. This would be aiming at getting more duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, townhomes, things of that nature. So again, looking at different zoning districts that City Council has asked us to look at, and we'll go into the detail on those. And then just looking at other ways that we can remove zoning barriers in our land use code. So these are the suggestions, and I'm trying to get these out of the way. I'll go over these briefly. So council had suggested that we add the RMX1 zone to the scope of the project to loosen up zoning in that area. I'll talk about where that is, what we are proposing in the ordinance. They've asked that we look at the RM1 zone, which is a medium density zone that exists in a number of places around the city. And then also looking at lower density areas of the city that are predominantly detached dwelling unit areas, looking at loosening up the rules in those areas. We originally were considering owner occupancy, and I know this was something that we talked about last time. We've had some concerns about moving in that direction, just because while we understand the concerns about investors coming in and buying up a lot of properties, I think there's a lot of thought that, and we heard the same from planning board and council, that perhaps zoning isn't the best way to deal with that, and that there are other methods that should be looked at to address that. So we were directed by council to not include that in the ordinance. So we talked about last time, we're not proposing any owner occupancy element of this ordinance. We also looked at creating an exemption to our site review process, which is our more detailed discretionary review process. For anything that's missing middle housing, that basically is evolved into, let's create an exemption for any project that's 100% permanently affordable housing. So basically what this means is that anything that doesn't require any modifications, that ordinarily would still have to go through site review due to its sheer size, would be exempted from that process if it goes through a staff level design review process with Housing and Human Services. So this is a process that already exists. It's for projects where there might be a site review project that fulfills its inclusionary housing requirements by doing offsite. That offsite has to go through a design review process. This would just be channeling any 100% permanently affordable projects into that process if it doesn't otherwise require modifications like a height modification, things like that. So we've included that in the ordinance. I'm not going to talk about 6 and 7 since it's not as much housing related, just re-looking at the minimum thresholds for site review and some incentives for residential. There wasn't a lot of comments from the boards on that, so I'm not going to focus on those. But if you've looked through the ordinance or the memo and you have questions, I'm certainly happy to answer those. With the topic of adding housing in a lot of areas of the city, we've heard viewpoints on both sides. We hear from folks that are very much advocates of housing, and that by adding housing to the city, you have more money going into the affordable housing fund with every unit that gets added. We've been asked or told by many that we should be going further with the changes. We should be allowing more. Again, the confines of this project are we have to suggest things that are consistent with the current comprehensive plan. There's an update coming up, obviously, where we can look at the vision again, and we may be implementing some different changes down the road, but this is within what we find consistent with the current plan. We've seen a lot of support for allowing housing along bus corridors around downtown and around neighborhood centers to try to meet the city's 15-minute neighborhood goals, trying to get more walkability, more housing around uses that people can walk to instead of having to drive. On the other side of the coin, we've also heard folks that are very concerned with all the changes that have been happening and the impact that will have on Boulder, not to mention a lot of the state laws that have been passed that I'll talk about later, the concerns about what that'll do to certain neighborhoods. There's a lot of folks that have indicated that, if we're going to add housing, it should only be deed restricted permanently affordable housing, and that if we're just adding housing, it's not always going to be affordable. There's concerns about parking. A lot of folks just want to stop seeing all the large buildings going up, so we hear those concerns. There are some neighborhoods that are concerned about these changes affecting their neighborhoods that are already affected. So areas like Martin Acres and University Hill are concerned and have asked that they be exempted out of these changes based on the impacts that they've already been experiencing. So another element that we've done beyond our newsletters, making people aware of the changes and meeting with certain groups throughout the city. We also did a Be Heard Boulder questionnaire. I'll say this at all the hearings, that it's not a statistically valid survey. It's just one tool that we use. But you can see from the results up on the screen, and we have it in the memo, that there was a fair amount of support for adding housing. I think with the zoning for affordable housing project, I think the percentages of support were around 55% support. But those changes that were proposed last time were really focused on high density residential neighborhoods, commercial neighborhoods, and industrial neighborhoods. Now that we've kind of shifted the focus more to, the RMX1 zone, areas around downtown, and a lot of the lower density residential zones, we're seeing less support, a lot more mixed comments on it. So our results this time showed, 50 to 60% of folks that answered the questionnaire did not support the changes that council has asked us to do. So this is just a graphic that we often show that just shows what missing middle housing is and what we're trying to aim towards getting in the city of Boulder. There's only 9% of our housing types as missing middle. So this would help towards moving towards that. So I'm going to go into some of the key components of the ordinance. So starting with RMX1, this is a mixed residential zone shown in the purple. It surrounds downtown and tends to be where a lot of the highest concentration of historic housing stock is. So Whittier, parts of Goss Grove, parts of University Hill, West Pearl, parts of Mapleton, are all in the RMX1 zone. So this is an interesting zone because it was originally built with like single family homes, the turn of the last century. And then over time, it evolved into a high density zone. So they did see in the past a lot of historic buildings getting knocked down and replaced by, I would say, not so nice looking apartment buildings, particularly in the 1960s and 70s. So there was a reaction that kind of came to a head, I think, in the 1990s, where they wanted to slow that down. And there were also parking and traffic impacts in this area that led the city to changing the high density zoning back to a low density zoning. So RMX1 zone is a mixed density zone. It has a mix of housing types already, but it's actually like a low density housing zone now. It only allows one dwelling unit for every 6,000 square feet of lot area, which is almost identical to like the RL1 zone, which is one unit for every 7,000, which is our detached dwelling unit areas of the city. But because of the sensitivities of this zone, it's called out pretty specifically in our comprehensive plan that there are traffic impacts and that some housing can be added, but it does call out the sensitive nature of this area. It does have a density because of the mix of 6 to 20 dwelling units per acre. So there's some flexibility for allowing some more housing. But we've kind of approached this very delicately based on these concerns and also the amount of housing stock that's there that's over 50 years of age. So these are some graphics that we sent out. I think I showed these at the last presentation, that the point of this whole project is not to get more big buildings. The point is to have bulk controls like floor area ratio, lot coverage, sidewall articulation, height limits, setbacks that are the same as what is applied to detached dwelling units. So apply those bulk controls, but just be more flexible about what's within the building. So instead of it being a detached dwelling unit, there might be the ability to do a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. So that's what this graphic is showing, and this is what we included in the questionnaire that we sent out. So again, same, general bulk, slight differences in appearance, but you would have more units within that. And that would be another way of getting missing middle housing and trying to not change the character of neighborhoods too dramatically. What we had suggested last time was modifying the zoning requirement from 6,000 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit down to 3,000. When we presented that to planning board and council, there was interest in making that 2,500 square feet, so allow even more units. So we've returned with an ordinance that has, after the conversation at planning board last night, fairly complicated language that tries to really incentivize units within buildings that are historic to try to avoid a bunch of demolitions of historic housing stock in order to get the additional units. So this graphic basically shows, or this map shows, that you can see a lot of the housing that's pre-World War II is shown in the green and blue, and that highest concentration tends to be in this RMX1 zone. So what staff has proposed is some criteria that would have to be met in order to get those additional units. And it's all really aimed at, encouraging people to build on vacant lots, build in areas where it doesn't impact existing buildings, or that it encourages alterations within the building to get the units, and really tries to discourage demolition. So this was discussed extensively last night by planning board. There were a lot of concerns about the complexity of the language. So planning board did support the changes and understood the intent and the sensitivity of the area, but they felt that the language should be simplified. So we've taken that to heart, and we are working on some language that would really just kind of get at that. We don't want to encourage people to illegally demolish buildings in order to get the additional density. So what we're trying to do is say it more plainly in the ordinance that if you demolish something without permits, or you don't go through the proper, historic preservation process, you don't get the extra units. It just stays at the 6,000. Otherwise, it would be 2,500 if you meet those process parameters. So we're still working on that language before we go to council. Jumping into the low density areas, we're talking about 3 particular zones that are shown on this map. So RL1, RR1, and RR2. You can see that's in terms of land area, it's one of the most prevalent land areas of the city, tends to be mostly detached dwelling units. When we look at the comp plan, it does say it consists predominantly of single family detached units at densities of 2 to 6 dwelling units per acre. So we do have to abide by that with this code change. And what I talked about last time in June was that we did an analysis based on the gross land areas, based on what council had asked us to do, rather than doing the parcel by parcel type zoning. And it did show that we could allow more units in these zones within this particular comprehensive plan. When we talked to council about it, there was interest in concentrating where those units could be along bus corridors so that we're encouraging transit use. So again, we have a graphic that shows it. In this case, we're just talking about duplexes. But at the request of council, it was also, why not allow 2 detached dwelling units? Again, with each lot, they would have to meet the height, bulk plane, solar access, floor area ratio, lot coverage. There's a lot of restrictions that apply to a detached dwelling unit. It would apply in the same way to a duplex. So we're not going to see like additional bulk. It just would be more units. So we did look at mapping to find out where bus corridors are, and our proposal last time was 350 feet from any corridor. We continue to recommend that, but we did note to planning board last night and to HAB tonight that the map has since been updated where some bus routes have been removed because of the fact that some of them are seasonal. So it's not really of use most of the year, and some were CU bus routes, and that actually dropped the number of eligible lots from 40%, which we were arguing would, meet that predominantly single family, down to about 30%. So we made a key issue for planning board that if you wanted to get back up to 40%, you could increase this distance to 550 feet from the corridor, and planning board did support that. So we're still looking at the ordinance to see what we're going to bring to council, but just wanted to make the board aware of that change. These are the eligible routes as of today. This is something we'd have to continually look at and update, obviously, as RTD will change bus routes from time to time. So we will have to make sure that this is up to date if this moves forward. RM1 is a medium density zone that's found throughout the city. It's typically in the more, I would say, suburban areas of the city, and also in North Boulder where Dakota Ridge is. It's typically around neighborhood centers. It allows 6 to 14 dwelling units per acre. This is a zone that uses a density calculation of 3,000 square feet of open space per dwelling unit. We've been looking at 2,000 square feet of open space per dwelling unit. Again, with the same aims of allowing some flexibility to get more units that are within walkable distance of neighborhood centers. Council has indicated support of using that 2,000 square feet of open space per dwelling unit. There has been some concern on council as well about reducing open space. So we've been in conversations with the Department of Climate Initiatives on this issue related to environmental concerns, but we're moving forward with this recommendation at this time, but we are going to be meeting with them to talk about this further. The last thing I'm just going to talk about is the 100% permanently affordable housing restriction that or exemption that would allow projects staff level review in what's called the Affordable Housing Design Review. So we're still recommending that. It's a lot of qualitative criteria that are similar to site review anyway. Boulder Housing Partners has indicated support for this. not necessarily making it cheaper for their projects, but it would be quicker, it'd be a more, timely review. It would lower risk if there weren't call-ups, from planning board and members of the public. So we still have that component within the ordinance. So we find that the content of the ordinance is consistent with a number of BVCP policies as we've outlined within the memo. I've listed the relevant policies up on the slide. We think that the changes that are in the ordinance would meet the goals of the project in concentrating more housing options throughout the city to reach out to a lot more different types of people, to give them the ability to live and stay in Boulder. With these changes, it could add the potential of over 7,000 housing units. I know that there's, maybe proposals for more housing or other ways of getting housing. Those are things that are going to be looked at as part of the BVCP update. So as phase 2 of this project is contemplating, if there are changes to the comp plan that talk about allowing more housing throughout the city in different ways, that would be implemented once the comp plan is updated. We plan to answer questions from members of the public at office hours in coming days. And as far as next steps, we're going to be conveying the recommendation of planning board and HAB to city council. The tentative schedule at this point is first reading at council on December 19th, and then public hearing and second reading on January 9th. This is suggested motion language that we have for the board. We can come back to that, but other than that, that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
So when you talk about the middle income, this isn't qualified by AMI, correct? It's more like the shape and size of the property of the structure, correct?
Yeah, it's the housing type. So, I think what we're working towards is like, there's a lot of large single family houses in Boulder that, could be like 4,000 square feet. Not everyone needs a 4,000 square foot house. This would give them the ability to have 2,000 square foot units that would be comparatively cheaper. It's not deed restricted.
Right, okay.
I have a question about the bus route proposal for RL1, RR1, and RR2. So I understand the proposition there is that current single-family home lots within 350 feet of a mapped bus route, which is approximately 30% of Boulder, would be allowed to turn it into a duplex.
It's 30% of lots in the zones. Yeah.
In those zones.
Yeah.
And is it just a duplex, or could they put in two
Detached would also be allowable based on
detached?
yep,
Okay.
what we have in the ordinance.
And it says on a straw vote, 6-2. That's 6-2 of council.
Yeah.
Is that correct? The two dissenting votes noted it was a bridge too far and was counter to the results of the outreach. Did not take into account fire danger. Is there any evidence that this would increase fire danger?
I think the concerns along those lines were that there was hesitancy about adding units in fire-prone areas where if there were to be a fire and an evacuation, you're adding more people that would have to be on the evacuation routes. It's not the adding housing that adds the risk. It's just more people that would have to evacuate.
Okay. And then protections against investors buying up property should be in place. But the overall concept of incorporating ownership requirements into owner occupancy into zoning was unpopular, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had presented the challenges of that. I mean, it's monitoring owner occupancy among a ton of housing units throughout these zones would add a whole new mechanism to the city. It would be a barrier to people adding housing, but just on the staffing side, it would also mean we would probably have to hire staff to monitor that through a licensing process or some other method.
Do you know if any other city has done that sort of thing, incorporated owner occupancy into zoning?
It's fairly rare from what I've seen, like it's common with like accessory dwelling units. But there's a lot of studies that are now kind of pushing back against owner occupancy, just, by the fact that it would put up a barrier to adding more housing. But there were a couple examples, I think, out in California where you can subdivide your property into a duplex per a state law if one were owner occupied. So I know some jurisdictions out there have been doing it. I haven't heard back from them as to how common it is, but it's pretty rare otherwise to have owner occupancy.
It does seem like tax, there's some popularity to the idea of exploring using tax.
Yeah, I think that's where the conversations really kind of pointed was, maybe zoning is not the best way to get at that, and that there are other things that should be looked at.
And then I guess my last question on that element is, there's discussion of increasing it from 350 to 550. Could you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so when we went to council in October, the 350 was suggested because that equated to about making 40% of the lots in those lower density zones eligible for a duplex along the corridors. When some of the bus routes were subtracted because they weren't year round, that dropped the number of lots down to 30%. So to get it back to 40% again, it would be 550. We have 350 in the ordinance just because that's what was represented to the public in the outreach. It's what we, heard from council, but we wanted to get feedback from the boards on that as well.
Can I call it on that? Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
The 40%, is that based on what the intensity standards in the Boulder Valley Comp Plan land use?
Yeah, like
established?
anything that we're suggesting is still within the 2 to 6 dwelling units per acre.
Right. So should we make changes to the Boulder Valley Comp Plan in those intensity standards in those zones? Would we need to come back and make changes to this if we wanted to still meet the percentage that's allowable under the Boulder Valley Comp Plan intensity?
I mean, we're not suggesting any changes here that would necessitate a change to the comp plan.
Right.
There may be changes to the comp plan that happen after this that may come back to like updating this. I don't know what those changes might be.
So we're working under the current
Yes.
BVCP as opposed to anticipating that until then, we're held to this, but there's a mechanism that will allow us to go up to any new intensity standard that's not built in. Is that
Yeah, and what
correct?
we're suggesting is the percentages that, again, we're trying to make the argument, that it's not going to be possible for a neighborhood to develop to have more duplexes than detached dwelling units. So we're trying to honor that predominantly detached dwelling unit character. So that's why we thought 40% was a reasonable percentage. They're not all going to develop overnight. They're not probably all going to develop at all. People have to choose to make those changes.
So when you talked about 7,000 potential new, how did you come up with that number? And did you get a sense of where geographically it might be distributed?
It was kind of a complicated analysis. I have, all these, so we have the number of lots per the zone. So we looked at what percentages the zones could allow more dwelling units based on using a gross dwelling unit figure. And there was actually, the net and gross density that we found that actually exists was both very much below the 6 dwelling units per acre maximum. So there was a lot of flexibility to add, but we just broke it down into like what percentages, what kind of zoning requirements. So we have to have a 30% increase, a 40% increase, or a 50%. We felt that 40 was a reasonable amount. So we just figured out how many lots, and then they use the mapping to distribute that along bus routes. That's how we get to the variation in the buffer.
Yeah, when you referenced the open space requirements, and it sounds like there's some political loggerheads going on between the planning proposals and the climate action concerns. Is that between, what is it, 2,000 and 3,000 feet requirement?
Yeah, the proposal is to go from 3,000 square feet of open space down to 2,000 square feet of open space per dwelling unit.
And it seems like there's probably some cost benefit analysis of, yeah, we're covering more of the earth with buildings, but we're reducing other environmental factors like commuting. Is that something that you're looking for a recommendation on from Havon that would might help?
It wouldn't hurt. I mean, it's certainly like anything else, it's, you know, with the city, we're balancing policy interests. So getting, you know, a recommendation on that would be helpful.
And then regarding the transit-oriented development kind of catchment area, it sounds like you're trying to address areas that are roughly a block from a bus stop on either side.
Exactly.
That's kind of the metric.
Yeah.
Okay, and going to 550 would be more like 2 blocks, which doesn't seem like an unreasonable walk to go catch your bus. So is that another thing you'd be looking for recommendation on?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great.
In this exemption for 100% permanently affordable, the idea behind that is basically if someone goes through the design process through Housing and Human Services, they don't have to do it again to build through planning department.
Yeah, they can just do a staff level review, get their approval and just go right to permit.
Okay. Basically would serve older housing partners, this whole
It'll reduce costs for Boulder housing.
element if they're doing another permanent supportive housing, that kind of project.
Yeah, I think it would be most likely to be a BHP type project that would take advantage of that.
Well, I don't, is there anyone else other than BHP who builds 100% permanently affordable housing?
Element.
This one does.
There are nonprofits out there and for-profit developers.
And those are
That's
all,
common though.
I think because they are permanently affordable, they have some sort of partnership with the city, correct? To begin
They
with.
get funding from the city, so that's
Yeah.
And usually like low income housing tax credits. Yeah.
So is that a given in this current policy proposal, or is that another area of potential recommendation?
It's in the ordinance. I think planning board had concerns about it when we talked about it in October, less concern about it when we talked about it yesterday. So I don't know that we necessarily need I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have a specific recommendation on that.
Did, what was the upshot with planning board?
The concern or consideration was there isn't a publicly accessible document that shows what the criteria are that the in-house review would go through. So I think part of it is how comparable is it to the concerns that a planning board review would bring to the project, recognizing that, you know, as with the DAB board and what in the input that is given oftentimes results in positive outcomes. So that was the concern is, are the criteria that are being considered, and we didn't have access to them, and I'm not sure this. So that was the latest concern last night, was what are we giving up as far as outcomes into the community?
Can I ask a question? Like if right now, if PHP wants to build a new building, that has to go through planning board, right?
It depends on the zone and it depends on the size of the project. It's just there tends to be projects that just by the size of the site that they're developing on or the amount of floor area that they're adding, it puts them into site review. They don't have to go to planning board unless they're called up or appealed to go to planning board. The only ones that do have to go to planning board, and this doesn't change, is if they're proposing anything over 3 stories. Like that would still require an automatic planning board hearing.
But appeal, I mean, I think we want to make sure that the public always has the opportunity to put in some form of input or objection, whether it's merited or not, when we build something. And I'm trying to think procedurally how this changes that process.
But if it's a use by right, and I feel like you're opening the door for NIMBYism, so.
Sure.
So do you feel like the public should always have a say in
No,
whether
I'm
you
trying to
can
understand
build something?
what changes like in that process.
Well, I think this might have factored into the planning board discussion last night as we clarified that, you know, if somebody or if a project includes modifications to setbacks or to height or other things that would require site review, that it would kick them into that site review process where the public input. So what we're talking about is something that would meet all the parameters in zoning. We're talking like 3-story buildings.
Okay. What are your thoughts from, like, what does planning board feel will be excluded from that public review process now?
I think that was one of our concerns at the earlier presentation, was that the public wouldn't get any input. But again, you know, use by right projects don't get public input anyway. I think the biggest concern was what value, you know, the value that is added by going into a both public and a pretty robust criteria. It's in the code review process. What value will not be added because that will not be happening. And again, without having seen the criteria that the Housing and Human Services is who would be doing it, you know, there wasn't a way to say, oh, the value still remains. Although we were told by staff, and I think this is correct, that the criteria are similar. We just didn't have that information. So it was a question just about, at the end of the day, are these projects getting the benefit of some of these public processes?
Can you maybe explain to me a project that requests any modification or height bonus that would still have to be reviewed from the site review process? Can you explain what modification or height bonus means?
So a modification is just like, there's a zoning requirement for setback and height. A modification's if you're not meeting that setback. It's kind of like a variance, but it doesn't have to meet hardship criteria. So with a modification, we look at it in site review, and if it deviates from the underlying zoning, then we have to do an assessment about that. Basically, that change is still high quality and results in a building that fits into its context. So a height bonus is if you go over 3 stories. So if you go over 3 stories, you're subject to higher requirements in terms of community benefit requirements of that nature.
Good. Mel, since I didn't watch your meeting and see any coverage of it today, what did planning board conclude? Did you
On
vote
this
on?
ordinance in general?
Yeah, well, or any specific recommendations related to the ordinance?
Well, we did pass it. There were, what was the vote? 6 to
6 to
1.
1.
So there was one in opposition. We had 2 amendments. Do you have the amendments handy there? I never saw them written out. We added 2 amendments to it.
Well, one
To
was
our
to,
recommendation to city council.
one was to simplify the language in that section related to RMX 1. That was too complicated, like just say what the intent is and make sure to avoid that. And the second was to go with the 550 feet from the bus corridor.
And there was informal discussion. It wasn't put into a formal recommendation to council around the realization that we can change the zoning, but that's not going to necessarily get us more affordability in housing. And I know for myself personally, that was my big concern, because when I saw what the council, I don't know if you have the direction the council gave staff back in March after their retreat last year, was to offer more options, choices in housing type and price points. And I think without having owner occupancy and or deed restrictions, we lose complete control over where this market is going to go. And historically, we've been seeing that what's happening to housing in Boulder is it's investor driven. And we don't have the outcomes. We haven't been getting the outcomes that we're looking for. So that was a piece. There isn't a solution in this process because, as Carl mentioned, how to manage the potential lack of affordability was taken off the table for this particular ordinance. I think it is the biggest issue that, we're making these changes to try to get more housing for people who are going to live here and are going to contribute to the city. And yet there are no, all the indications are that it's probably not going to happen. So that's troublesome.
Mhm.
That's troublesome.
So did you discuss, maybe it's not part of zoning, but making a recommendation on a deed restriction? If you were gonna get 5 homes out of a certain size building envelope, and one could be deed restricted more than we're getting now.
I believe, as Carl said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the city council had asked for that to be taken off the table for this ordinance. Is that
That's
correct?
right, yeah.
So that's why we were putting it out as an informal. We would like that to remain as part of
Mhm.
the updates to this. They're looking at coming back, seeing how this is working and coming back and doing it. But I think that we need to not lose sight of what we're actually trying to do here.
Mhm.
Because oftentimes, change the zoning and you can hear the applause in the developer world because it opens up opportunities. But, yet on the public side, people are still saying, hey, we're getting more housing, but we still can't afford to live in the city and our kids can't afford to live in the city, et cetera, et cetera. So my encouragement is we got to start thinking out of the box. We've got to put new thinking on the table because using the same way we have done things has not gotten us
Right.
the solutions we're looking for.
Well, deed restriction is actually old thinking, but
I know.
maybe it's time has come again.
The ADU process includes owner occupancy and deed restrictions and those kinds of things. So it's not like it's not in our code already to do these sorts of things. For whatever reason, it was, taken off the table with this particular, and I don't mean whatever reason on staff's point, whatever reason for the city council, that was the direction.
But I think one thing that gets lost, and I'll just make it clear, is that obviously if we're opening up more opportunities for more housing units, that's more money that's going to go into the inclusionary housing fund with every unit that gets added.
I
Now,
think that's a good point. And one concern I have about, I think owner occupancy is something we should focus on, and I am starting to think that leveraging tax is the way to do it. For one, Boulder has higher taxes than other places, which means that there's more power to tax incentives. If you don't charge any tax, it's hard to create a tax incentive. But something that I'm just thinking about in my head is that if the owner occupancy was tied into zoning, I think we can look at Boulder and say there are certain demographics of people who own, and there's certain demographics of people who are more likely to rent. And does saying this neighborhood has to be owner occupied, could that have a disparate impact of essentially marginalizing certain groups from living in that neighborhood and making that entire neighborhood one race
well, the thing
or
is,
predominantly one race?
owner occupancy is only for the additional units. Only if you're having more than one unit. If you have a single family house, you don't have to live in it. But if you're taking a benefit of this zoning, then you're getting more than one house on your property. And so that's it, it's the anchor to the additional units. So you're creating a duplex, a triplex, a quadplex. And it's those second, third, or fourth housing units that could be rented or owned or however that works, as long as there's an owner on the property. And that's the way it works with ADUs currently. So I think that the tax option is kind of where the thinking is pointing at this point in time. You know, I don't know how far out that would be. The zoning would go into effect. Are we still thinking next year?
Yeah, this is set for council in January, so if it gets passed, it would be like February.
Right, so how far behind would be the tax? You know, just how many years of stuff would be happening? Yeah, it's a tough one.
We got Karen.
So I like your idea of like thinking outside the box, and it seems to me that Boulder has sort of figured out affordable housing at like 30% AMI or 60% or 80% with Boulder Housing Partners and Element and Thistle, and that while this addresses the middle housing in terms of what it looks like, what form it is, I don't know whether we've figured out the financial incentives to attract the, you know, the families, let's say, that we want to be able to live here so that we can fill up our schools. Am I making sense? So I wish there was a way that we could figure out how to target the missing middle in terms of the population and the income and the families that we want to live there, because it seems like we've, you know, the very high-end housing is taken care of and the deeply affordable is being addressed, but that missing middle, like at least having product that's a little bit smaller, a little more affordable is good, but I don't know whether it's enough for us to attract the families that we need to keep our enrollment up.
Well, not to belabor it, but so council doesn't really, if we made a recommendation about deed restrictions, it's kind of tilting at windmills at this point because they've said it's not on the table. Is that a fair statement?
I mean, I think you can make that recommendation. We can convey that.
Well,
to
what
them.
I'm getting at is maybe it could be a separate recommendation. Like we like this package, we approve it with some amendments, or we recommend it with some amendments, agreeing with planning board or not. But separately, you really should take a look at deed restrictions, because if you're going to producing more housing and the same building envelopes, potential to get 20% of that is permanently affordable, deed restricted for sale housing. It's a stated goal of addressing the missing middle.
Yeah,
Or
the
maybe
board
that-
can do that.
Or maybe that's a topic that HAB looks at future meetings, is like, do an exploration of what have other markets done to.
Well, I mean, we've done it, and it seems like what we've heard in our meetings, informational meetings, is that the user satisfaction of deed restricted housing is pretty high. It's like 90%, isn't it?
Say that again, say that?
90% of the people who live in for sale deed restrictable affordable housing are happy with it. And there's quite a few homes like that that were built mostly 20 years ago. Is it reasonable?
Do we know that 90%?
Yeah.
How do we know that?
We do surveys, that every 7 years.
But how is deed restricted housing built? in Boulder, isn't it?
Hmm.
Like the government partnership with a developer builds it and then sells it with a deed restriction on it?
Sorry, that's like a 40-minute.
Right, I guess my concern is like for zoning purposes, like infusing deed restriction to zoning, if someone wants to turn their lot within 100 feet of a transit corridor into a duplex, how do you infuse deed restriction into that process?
That makes it harder because
Right.
it'd be a 50% ratio.
In the city of Boulder, they've done it with ADUs.
Well, so ADUs are very different.
I know, it's still,
I know you
it's, the
keep coming
mechanism
back
is
to ADUs,
there.
but if you're gonna go down this road, I would think very carefully about it. Because the reason the council said they didn't want to look at deed restriction as part of this, because it's a significant disincentive. So people are not gonna take advantage of these new regulations if it's not profitable. Right?
The deed restriction's an encumbrance on the property.
Yeah, the developer actually builds the housing as a
Right.
piece, and then they have the one affordable unit for 5 or whatever. it
Like,
is.
I think deed restriction makes sense. Let's say the airport in theory was turned down, that's municipal property. The city owns it. They can encumber that land all they want because they own it, and then they can sell it to people as an encumbered piece of property. But if it's already pre-existing privately owned property, I don't know how we get the government to say, you have to encumber your own property.
That's almost like eminent domain, but let's time out. I
It
think
is,
that.
it is, it's taken.
I think that
Can't be done.
we've been asked to opine on what you've presented, and it does raise an issue of, yes, it's promoting a new size and shape and variety of buildings, but it's not necessarily addressing middle income population. So maybe what we do is we opine on what you've presented and add as a topic for a future discussion, a deeper dive into deed restricted for middle income. Because you're right, I think we're not going to do it in this meeting.
Right.
And I'd like to, there's a lot more to talk about and investigate, and I want to be respectful of your time and all the work that's gone into this presentation without like going off on a tangent that may be a very important tangent, but maybe isn't the goal of this meeting.
I also do think it may not be the most effective approach, but if we allow people who live within 550 or even 300 feet of transit corridors to sell their property to a developer, and then the developer tears down the house and puts in 2 houses on that piece of property, I do think that could have the result of making housing more affordable. Is that the most efficient way of creating affordable housing? No. But could it be a faster way of getting it done? Perhaps, because there's financial incentive involved. And I just think of like the Highlands in Denver, for example, those were for large part single family lots. And then you see these slot homes go up. Are they super affordable to buy one of these slot homes? No, but it's cheaper than buying a single family lot in that neighborhood. And if you want to live there, for a lot of people, it opens the door to that. And I think we need to be mindful that there's a lot of people who receive affordable housing. And I think the hope should be that they maybe don't receive in the future because their income is continuing to grow and maybe they grow out of affordable housing. And we want there to be free market options for people when they grow out of it so they can stay in this community and not be forced to move to Louisville or Superior.
I would just say healthy market options. Is I like how I like to say it.
Yeah.
Instead of free market. Healthy market options.
Go ahead.
Michael, can we get back to the agenda? Sorry, we're supposed to be focusing on questions. Sorry, you guys haven't done this in a while.
Right.
And then do the public comment, and then you guys can have discussion and make a decision.
Okay.
So just if you could, any more questions?
Just about to go there, thanks for the reminder. So I think this is a great example of a quick straw poll rather than a formal vote, which is a technique we talked about. Is everyone cool with putting other mechanisms such as deed restrictions aside for future discussion and continuing with questions for Carl? I see head nods, so we'll go in that direction. And I'd love to hear from some other members of the board with questions for Carl on what's been presented.
Can I ask a question that only a planner would ask? So what happens if the bus route changes? Are we creating non-conforming development?
Question.
That's a great question. I think we intend on updating that map. I think we'd have to maybe, when we do an update, make that clear that it wouldn't become non-conforming. I think when we were developing that map, we were trying to like really focus on the corridors that are most likely to remain as bus corridors, you know, based on their use, but not to say that couldn't change, but it's a great point.
But most likely the network will expand over time as opposed to contract.
Hopefully.
I'm just trying to think in my head, do you know of any corridors that have been stripped of a bus in Boulder in the last 20 years?
Yes. Yes.
Like all bus service, not reduced or something, but completely stripped.
4th Street bus, service to Denver has been reduced.
It's been reduced, but 36 is still a transit.
Two oh five used to go, I don't think 205 even exists anymore, but it used to go past my house and now it doesn't.
But for this purpose, as long as there's a bus that runs once a day on the street, then it's a transit
I'm
corridor.
not saying it's
right?
reduced, I'm saying it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, but are there other buses or is that streets? Yeah.
To answer your question, we also, we reference that, sorry. We reference that section in the code that says that they're not non-conforming.
Okay, that's
perfect. I just remember we put it in the definition. But it's a good point.
So it's like it's grandfathered in
Yeah.
because there was a bus route.
Maybe the bus will come back.
No, is there any language about like 15-minute midways or the level of service for?
No.
No.
I think,
Super complicated.
but here's just a thought to that though. If there's a bus that runs once an hour and we allow more density, maybe that creates incentive for there to be more frequency because more people now want to take the bus and there's less parking. So,
That,
you know, it goes both ways.
like we're just saying, it's an art, not a science. And we can't plan for every contingency. We never could have planned for the changes that have happened in the transit world in the last 4 or 5 years. We're still grappling with those, but we still want a transit rich future, and we want housing to support that. So it seems like keeping it in there without playing with it too much is probably a good way to go with a recommendation, which is something we can certainly vote on when we get to it. But does anyone disagree with that statement? Other questions for Carl? How does everyone feel about crafting and voting on a recommendation?
Danny?
Names.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we have to have our public comment first.
It's Danny.
Danny might have a question.
Thank you.
Hi all.
Hey, Danny.
Technical difficulties. I guess I'd just say, without getting into the weeds on some of the things like deed restrictions and that, a deed restriction is not going to be a taking, but it is a restraint, and it's a bigger step, and I think there's some concerns that would have to be addressed before we kind of go that direction. So in terms of what's been put before us, I think this looks great, and again, really great first step like we talked about last time, and so I'm supportive of it, in answer to those two questions. So I'll leave it at that for now.
You don't think if the government comes and says, I'm encumbering title on your home?
No, it's for a
document-
fact, it's not. There are deed restrictions all over the place. For a fact, it's not. You don't just come and say I'm encumbering it. If there's an incentive, if you're using it as a density as an incentive to be able to put a deed restriction in place, you absolutely can do it. It's been done all over the country.
Sure, if you elect to do it, if the owner of the
Well,
property.
if you
elects-
choose, right, if you choose a
Right,
density incentive, then you can absolutely say, here's what comes with it, a deed restriction. It's done everywhere. It's done in large cities, it's done in mountain communities, it's done everywhere. So it can absolutely be done. But I think in terms of this and what we're trying to do over here, I think kind of the baseline or foundational approach that Carl's put forward makes a lot of sense. And so I'm supportive of that.
And this is something we would really like to have a robust discussion about at a future, maybe our next meeting. And it's not really on the table now, so we'll stick with what Carl has presented if everyone's on board with that.
yeah, I think to Carl's point, to address your concerns, if someone wants to build dense housing, they still have to comply with affordable housing requirements for the city of Boulder, meaning pay in, right? Typically.
I hate to bring us back to the agenda, but can we finish with questions so we can get to public comment?
Well, I think that is a question. To what extent does the proposals here fall within the scope of that existing requirement? that developers build permanently affordable housing. Like if you're building a duplex, you don't need to set aside 15% or was it 25% as permanently affordable. There's only two
You
units,
pay a per square foot fee.
but you still have to
Okay,
pay
right.
even if you're doing that. So, and that goes to permanently affordable rentals or,
It goes to the Affordable Housing Fund, which is used in a wide variety of ways to create rental housing, homeownership opportunities. So again, that's another.
so I mean, I think that, I don't think just increasing density ignores the affordability program because we already have a hook in place. It may not be all the hooks, but I guess what we're saying is if you're gonna build two lots, or two homes on an existing lot within 550 feet of a transit corridor, the developer is going to be paying money into a permanently affordable housing program, which who knows, maybe the city will buy one of those lots and then make it permanently affordable with that money, right?
But that's already the system,
Right.
not a new policy.
But I think that mitigates perhaps some concerns about we're just increasing density, it'll do nothing for affordability. When we increase density and we build, that contributes money to affordability in Boulder by operation of adjacent law.
Good clarification, more questions? I think we're ready for public comment if we have any additional public comment related to this hearing. Anyone online?
Yeah, Lynn has her hand up.
Start with Lynn.
Sure. Then take it away.
The more you build, the more you increase the jobs housing imbalance because there's nothing to stop the jobs, and the jobs come with the housing. All of this housing has to have services. All of those services are cheap paying jobs and increase the commute to other places and the carbon footprint. I don't have to say it again and again and again and again and again. Boulder Housing Partners put heat pump water heaters in this project. I heard from a friend, and they raised the costs to the affordable people living in there because they stuck them in little tiny closets. The smaller and it costs something. Like I just had one put on my place, and it's through the CARE program, but they actually did vent it out, but that's expensive to do. And you have these little places and you're trying to do, cheaper utilities like a heat pump, hot water heater. They're complicated things to install. They need to be done right. Instead, Boulder Housing Partners stuck them in and raised the cost of running them because they didn't do them right. They need 700 cubic centimeters or 7 by 10 feet of warm, reasonably warm space to operate in. They pull in the heat and extract the cold. And so they've got to have, a vent getting them out of the space. And if Boulder Housing Partners is skyscrapers on the Flatirons, I'm sure they aren't going to have walls that they can just vent things out to. They're in the center of buildings. That's why I got my wash dryer in Europe. There's constraints on the space. So you have, a washer dryer that's half the size. That's a good deal. Takes 3 times as long to do the wash, but you have to adjust to that. Everything's not instant. I think workforce housing is a lot more important than permanently affordable ownership housing. People move, jobs move, and there's a lot more flexibility in rental. And private equity investors and rental-backed securities just need to be controlled so that the prices aren't rising all the time. And the more you build roads for buses, the more you build up more people, they're always going to drive cars. It doesn't matter. You're going to have more cars and more cars and more congestion and more pedestrians.
Thank you, Len.
Sounds like the Hunger
It'd be
Games.
nice to
It
see
does.
a timer. A timer would be very appropriate, you know, a timer. It's an old-fashioned timer.
Okay, well, thank you, Lynn. Does anyone have any questions, additional questions? I'm sorry.
Did you ask if Mark wanted to say?
Mark.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
um,
Used to looking at people on the screen.
yeah, I understand. It's really nice to be here in person. I just want to quickly say, I really doubt BHP is putting in heat pumps in their new units, and if they are, they're certainly not raising the rent because of them. But I will check into that. But my comments are that, and this isn't really focused on what you all have been talking about, but it concerns whether or not development goes up for to planning board. I'd like to see more encouragement on the city part for co-ops and co-housing. Co-ops obviously would address the 100% affordable unit criteria. Co-housing isn't necessarily 100%. I really wish it were, but it does include units. I used to live on one co-housing, but I'd like to see the city do more, perhaps within the scope of this vibrant neighborhood ordinance, to encourage co-housing. That's it.
Great. We have a co-housing resident on our board.
We do.
Yeah. Well, it's not what's on the table now, but Carl, is the city considering looking at any recommendations related to those two topics, co-op housing and co-housing?
Co-ops, I'm gonna talk about a little bit later. Believe it or not, we're taking the entire co-op ordinance out of the code to meet state law. So I can elaborate on that. But co-housing, we don't really have any regulations against co-housing. It's just, the number of dwelling units is based on what is permitted in the zone. It would be up to a developer to want to do that type of project as long as it meets the zoning. So I don't know that we necessarily have to have specific, requirements for that. But the co-op thing basically is that because the city can't restrict occupancy based on familial relationship, a lot of what's allowed in a co-op can happen in a lot of housing anywhere in the city now, based on that change. So the co-op regs were meant to allow an occupancy above what the city had before, but now it's not applicable.
Does that make the existing co-ops like safe from whatever's gonna change?
They can still operate. They if anything, they would meet the current
They
way
just-
we regulate occupancy.
The ordinance anymore?
Well, the state law doesn't allow enforcement of the occupancy rules that are in effect, that are in our land use code right now. So right now, the default, it goes back to the International Property Maintenance Code, the IPMC, which is a life safety code. So a lot of the co-ops have to meet that anyway, so.
Cool.
So that was a little preview. You just have to pay the annual fee anymore.
They won't.
Great. Anyone else from the public online that needs to comment?
No, I think we're good.
I'm ready to make a motion on this, just so everyone comfortable with that. Okay. This
know what it
really
is?
off the top of my head, so if I require, I think, I move that have support the goals of family-friendly, oh my God, I've forgotten. Vibrant neighborhoods. For adoption with several amendments. One would regard the open space requirement in favor of reducing that from 3,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet. Second would be transit corridors. We favor increasing the catchment zone, not the technical term, you can correct me later, from 350 feet from a transit corridor to 550 feet. And the third would be to support the proposal to exempt 100% affordable projects from site review. Furthermore, I have plans to have a more robust future conversation on other measures to recommend that could ensure greater affordability along with increased density under these proposals.
Did you prepare that ahead of time?
Sure.
Well said.
I second.
Should we
I
discuss?
think we should discuss before we vote. Maybe not.
It's not a requirement, but yeah, it's a good idea.
Well, it's important.
What were the three amendments again?
The main points were, we support what Carl has presented with three amendments. One would be actually supporting something that's on the table, which is to reduce the open space requirement by 33%, from 3,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet. Second would be to expand the transit corridors from 350 foot catchment area on either side of the corridor to 550 feet to bring it to 40% coverage of all the housing areas in the city. And the third would be to support the idea that 100% affordable projects should be exempt from site review.
I have one thought. I'm a big supporter of expanding the transit catchment. I think if you're looking for dense transit accessible housing, the difference between being 300 feet away and 600 feet is negligible. It's such a short walk. Why would we say, oh, people at 400 feet of bus, 300 will? I think it actually could and should be greater than 550. And it sounds like there are two people on city council who are opposed to the idea. I mean, is there any harm to us recommending more than 550 to stress the fact that we think that transit accessible should be greater than 550? And if they choose to do 550, so be it.
The technical definition of transit-oriented development, maybe it's been updated. It used to be a quarter-mile walk from a major transit stop. And
How many feet is that?
and that's generally defined as a train station, but go ahead.
Maybe Carl needs to explain the rationale behind that distance. It's not related to walkability. It has more to do with how many units are within that distance and making sure that we're in performance with the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, so we were going at the 40% of the lots would be eligible. We were trying to keep it below 50% so that we meet the comp plan to stay predominantly detached dwelling units. It could be increased arguably to, as long as it doesn't go over the 50%.
I have a question on the follow-up question there. The idea behind this, we want to preserve the character of a neighborhood. We don't want it to be all attached housing. But you said this also allows for the development of like two homes into a single family lot. Would that comply with the comprehensive plan if we allowed people to subdivide their lots within a certain distance of housing, but they weren't
They
necessarily?
wouldn't be able to subdivide the lot. It would be on the same lot, but it would also be subject to the same bulk restrictions and everything. So that's the point, is that they don't get to build an additional house that's of the same scale. It would have to fit within the floor area ratio and lot coverage on that lot, but without a, yeah.
But they could be, or do they have to be?
It depends on the lot, but there's setbacks, there's distance requirements between buildings.
Okay. Maybe we stick with 550. I understand the concern about the comprehensive plan, but it might also, if our board wants to send a message that we really support this idea, and again, it's just me talking, I support this idea a lot. Maybe sending a message more than 550 would be effective in saying we really support this. Planning board says they support 550, and maybe we support more.
There was an informal recommendation to remove to have it be available to all ours. This higher density,
Available to all.
Oh, what?
all of the RL1, R. That was an informal. It wasn't part of our motion. It wasn't part of the approved motions, but we just sent some suggestions to think about. And one of them was, let's get some affordability concerns on the table. And the other one was, let's not have any restrictions to the minimum lot size, which would allow plexes on what are currently single family.
I think
So
I'm-
I think expanding it in your thinking was very much on the table. It just did get formalized.
I think we could cover that by changing the motion language to say at least 550 feet.
That works.
Right. Or if you want to do a quarter mile, does that conflict with the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan if we were to say that?
I mean, our analysis is that going over like 700, it gets you, pushes it over the 50%. I mean, there's different ways of looking at this. Obviously, it can be interpreted differently. The argument that came up last night is that you could put it at 50% and it's not like all the lots become duplexes and put it out of compliance. It would stay predominantly, detached dwelling units for a long time. But I think our vantage point is that, we're trying to safely be within the confines of what is, specified in the plan.
Well, I'll let other people talk. I'm in favor of
700.
something more expansive than 550. I'm in favor of the 550 and the 350, but I really do think promoting density near transit corridors is a wise idea. And how can we send that message, so I'd like to hear from others.
Well, I'd be good with the at least, but if you have to make a motion to amend the motion, with specific language.
Well, I don't know if I'm seeing amended. I'm inviting, does anyone else have comments on this point?
I'm all for increasing the number too. And if 700 is the kind of like reasonable, politically possible maximum, maybe 700 is a better number. I don't know, but yeah, I think 1320 would be great. That's 5280 divided by 4. But
How does everyone feel about at least 500 to 700 feet?
We should do a number. It seems like there might be some debate right now on council between 350 going up to 550 from 350. If we want to send a message, we really support this, maybe we do higher than 750 and maybe that persuades some people fine, won't do 550 or whatever. I don't know.
So I'm in favor of trying to maximize the amount, but I recognize you've done a lot of analysis that shows if it's, this many feet, it'll be 40%. If it's this many feet, we're bumping up against 50%. So rather than us throwing out a number that potentially could make us not be in compliance with the Boulder Valley Comp Plan, maybe we put something that says, a maximum amount of, 550, 500 or more, provided that it doesn't bounce up against the 50%. But I don't know that I want to throw out a different number, like given that you've done all this analysis.
And the quarter mile is really for a robust urban transit station,
Train, yeah.
not for the once an hour bus. So that might even be a good prescription.
I think saying at least 550 feet, like Michael proposed, certainly makes it clear that we're, very open and supportive of going beyond that. If that works, but it lays out that baseline and then it leaves it open to go beyond it. And I don't know that it makes sense to go much further than that now in terms of specifics when we haven't really had a chance to vet what those specifics would implicate, right? So if we said 550 or beyond, I think it really helps address a robust corridor If that's supported, and if not, we're starting off at 550 from our perspective.
I propose an amendment with the language of no less than 550 feet.
I support that.
So I guess I can second that. A second.
Okay.
Do we need to hear the language of the motion again before we vote?
Please, no.
Carl, can you are you clear on what the
I'm
motion
clear.
is? You are?
I'm clear.
Okay.
I can say it again.
Because I wasn't sure if they were talking about the RMX one or the RM1 in terms of the 2,500 versus the 3,000. If you're clear on that.
I mean, yeah, I don't know that we touched on that, so it wouldn't hurt to. It sounds like there's support of the intent within RMX ones, but if there's preference for the language that's in the ordinance versus the simplified language.
What's the RX? It's the RL1, RR1, and RR2.
RMX one,
Is that included in that proposal?
Like you were talking about the RMX one, right? When you were in your motion?
I didn't mention it.
I think that was the first thing you addressed was the open space.
The open space
That's part of
RM
the
one
next one. Mention that name RMX one.
Okay, so you're talking about the RM1. Okay, all right. That helps me. You're good.
It's whatever category where they were gonna reduce the open space.
Well, I think they're looking at RMX one as well, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were talking about the density calculation or the open space requirement.
About the open space.
Carl's got it.
Okay. And that is an RMX one.
that's RM1.
RM1.
I think I can say that again, so we can vote on it. I motion that HAB support the,
It's up on the screen for you, Michael. That you can say you
there it is.
motion on the screen.
Housing Advisory Board recommends that council adopt proposed ordinance 8666, amending chapters 9.2 review processes, 9.6 use standards, and 9.8 intensity standards of Title IX, Land Use Code DRC 1981, to amend density and intensity standards to allow development of additional dwelling units in the residential rural RR1, residential rural 2 RR2, residential low 1 RL1, residential medium 1 RM1, and residential mixed 1 RMX1 zoning districts, to amend review procedures and use standards to reduce regulatory requirements for certain residential developments and setting forth related details. Adding to that, we support a reduced open space requirement from 3,000 to 2,000 square feet for, let me get this right, RM1. We support expanding the transit corridor allowance to not less than 550 feet from a transit corridor, as opposed to 350 feet, not less than 550 feet. And we strongly support the elimination of site review for permanently 100% affordable housing proposed projects. And finally, HAB will look into other measures in the very near future that would support guaranteed affordable housing allotments within new development. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Passes 7-0. Which brings us back to Carl Geiler. Updated occupancy and ADU changes required by state law. This is an informational item that we will not vote on.
All right, so I don't have a PowerPoint for this unless you want one, but I could pull that up if necessary, but I think I can go over it pretty informally. The state passed a number of bills this year that relate to housing. So this update is about ADUs and occupancy. So in the spring, there was a bill on ADUs that was passed and also a separate bill on occupancy. So with respect to the ADU bill, Hab's probably aware that we've recently made updates to the ADUs through the last several years, but last year there was a fairly extensive change where it's allowed more broadly. So that brought us to probably about 80% of what the state bill says. The state bill has some language. There's a lot of nuance in the ADU bill that we've been trying to work out with the state. But basically what it says is that you have to allow, if you're a community within Dr. Cog that's over certain size, which includes Boulder, you have to allow ADUs in any area where detached dwelling units are allowed. You also have to not have design restrictions that go beyond a detached dwelling unit. And you also have to have some levels of flexibility in terms of setbacks that can't go beyond 5 feet. So this ended up being the kind of the biggest thing, that in detached dwelling unit areas of the city, we have a setback that's typically, 20 or 25 feet for the principal building, but we allow accessory buildings to be in that rear yard, usually at 0 or 3. Accessory buildings tend to be smaller in size or smaller and have a lower height. We found out from reading the language from the state that it actually says that you can build an attached ADU on your detached dwelling unit at a 5-foot setback, even from the rear. So once we realized that, that was kind of like, that's a pretty big change for a detached dwelling unit to allow the principal structure to go all the way to 5. We had a number of clarifying conversations with the state, and they clarified to us that that is what they intended. So we're in the process of working on an ordinance that would make these changes. So basically we have to update the land use code to allow ADUs in all the zones that allow detached dwelling units. We're removing a number of the design requirements. So like there's a couple design requirements, like you have to have personal open space for the ADU. You have to, the side entry has to be screened. That's all being removed. But we do have a special section that says that you can build an attached ADU and have a setback of 5 feet as stated in the state bill. But we talked to the state and they agreed that you could put the same bulk parameters that apply to an accessory building on that attached portion so that the visual effect would be minimal compared to what can happen now. So basically it would still have to meet the 20-foot height limit in that setback area, and it would have a 500 square foot maximum building coverage, same as an accessory building. So there's also a requirement that you can't require owner occupancy after the permit is issued, or it can only be required at time of permit issuance, and then it's not to be checked after that. So we're moving forward with an ordinance that just does not have the owner occupancy requirement. It also has a very complicated parking requirement. In general, it's like you can only require parking if there's not like on-street parking availability. It's very nuanced language. We're proposing to just eliminate the parking requirement for an ADU. So we'll be moving forward with that ADU ordinance. Next month, it'll go to planning board. And then it'll go to council in January and February. Same night and same time, we're going to be talking about the occupancy change. So this was a very brief state bill, but you know from presentations I've made in the last year that we recently changed the occupancy rules. It used to be 3 or 4 per unit, unrelated persons per unit. We changed that to 5. Citywide. But since then, the state bill passed, which basically said you can't regulate occupancy based on the number of unrelated persons. You can't use familial relationship in your determination for occupancy. It goes further to say that if you're going to regulate occupancy, it can only be done based on established life safety rules, among some other code. So the city already does have the International Property Maintenance Code, the IPMC, that sets the occupancy limit based on life safety parameters. So that typically is less restrictive than a zoning occupancy limit, but the state law basically says you can't have a zoning related occupancy limit. So while the state bill was very brief, the city code is going to be, the ordinance is going to be pretty big. It's like 89 pages right now. And it's just by the fact that there's a lot of references to occupancy throughout the whole Boulder revised code, and we have to take it all out.
Does Boulder have to take it out, just leave it and it's not valid, or?
It could be left in it. It's a policy decision by council. There could be some risks associated with that. But typically we've been bringing ordinances forward to implement state law, but again, it's a policy decision by council.
So if there's no like 5 unrelated people, and you're talking about, let's say, a 3,000 square foot house or a 800 square foot apartment, how do you know what the number is?
Yeah, so it's the IPMC is it's not as easy. It's based on number of bedrooms and the size of bedrooms, as well as the provision of other types of rooms. So it's not an easy answer. So basically it says, and I'm not an expert on the IPMC, that kind of puts it into the building code. But basically, if you have a bedroom, it has to be at least 70 square feet for one person. But if you have 2 people, it's 50 square feet per person. So that would make a bedroom like 100 square feet if 2 people are going to stay in it. So it's that square footage plus how many bedrooms. And then it's like, how many people do you have based on those number of bedrooms? In addition, you then have to have a dining room and living room of certain sizes. So if you don't meet those requirements, it ratchets down the occupancy. So it's not an easy answer.
But in theory, could people sleep in the living room and the dining room if they're big enough square footage?
It still goes back to the bedrooms. Like that's the starting point. And then based on how many people you can have in the bedrooms, then those additional requirements kick in for the living rooms and dining rooms.
Thank you.
So basically references to the IPMC will be added to the land use code and the ordinance.
And when does that matter? When someone's applying for a rental license and they want to be able to lease the house out to 30 people, and city says we're not going to do that?
I mean, in general, the state bill says that the city can't even though we haven't updated our land use code, it says that the city can't enforce an occupancy limit that conflicts with the state bill after July 1st of this year. So, the city could leave it as it is, but if it started enforcing it, the state could intervene. I don't know. But again, that's something that we would have to take to council and see how they address the ordinance.
And how much of this is interpreting the intent of the law versus just trying to, literally copy it and make it part of Boulder policy?
There's a certain level of interpretation, but anytime there's a lot of references in the land use code about unrelated. So we are looking to cross all those off and get rid of the occupancy section that does the zoning limit based on unrelated. The co-op section is based on that as well. So that's, like I said, would be removed in its entirety in the ordinance.
Was it talking about bathroom, size of kitchen, other amenities you need if there's more people?
That's in Title 10 of the BRC. Again, that's where it references the IPMC. We don't have to change that because it's already there. It's just that the references to the zoning occupancy in the land use code, which is Title 9, all has to be changed to reference Title 10. There's also, we've noticed that the state has been using the terms multi-unit instead of multi-family because they're moving away from family being. So we've noticed some other jurisdictions doing that. So that's another reason why the ordinance is so long, is that there's so many references to single family and multifamily that all get changed to detached dwelling unit and multi-unit throughout the
Hold the revised code.
Unfair to single people or people that don't have children, or is, what's?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of opens it up that there's a lot of different definitions of family and that it shouldn't be just assumed that one family is in each unit. So yeah, we'll be bringing that forward also in December to planning board and then January and February to council.
Sorry,
Sorry,
the big thing with ADUs is the elimination of the parking requirement.
in the owner occupancy.
Oh, that's huge, yeah.
Yeah.
So for the occupancy, is someone who wants to rent a unit, are they still gonna have to post the maximum occupancy as part of getting a rental license?
No, that's being removed.
So so we're not enforcing any sort of occupancy or
There's enforcement of the IPMC occupancy limit.
that's based on, that's a complaint basis.
Yeah,
It's gonna be the arbiter of that. Sounds really complicated.
well, it's our current code enforcement staff. It's the same people that were enforcing the zoning. They were well versed in both. But it does, introduce some ambiguity because it's not before it was like 5 is the limit. It's still, difficult to enforce in the sense of how do you walk into a unit and know how many people are there and whether they're related or not. It's not.
Violates the IPMC and many units in Boulder, right?
It could.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm thinking
Yeah.
when I leased my 1 bedroom years ago, I think there was like a notice I got that said no more than 2 related persons or 1 unrelated person. It's a 1 bedroom, I assume for safety, whatever, it's a small unit, it's probably 2 people. Now it would just say no more than 2 people, or does it just not say anything?
As far as I know, it's not going to say anything on the license.
Sounds like some of the regulation will be more front-ended. Because you have to determine occupancy before the place is rented out, right?
Yeah, in order to write up your lease and everything, you'd have to understand the
Or you get your
IPMC.
permit.
Do you know,
Your license.
does this state law, I understand it regulates cities, does it also regulate private landlords? Can a landlord say no more than? Or you have to be related?
I think it does, it says specifically that even like HOAs can't limit
Okay,
occupancy, for instance, so it,
relatedness.
Interesting. Do you think this will be wrapped up when?
I think the public hearing is set for February with council. I think it's at planning board in December.
It's a state law mandate, a deadline to make it happen.
Well, with ADUs, I think it says by middle of 2025. I'm guessing that it could be a little bit later. The occupancy one just says that jurisdictions have to stop enforcing it after last summer. So we've had to talk to our enforcement staff about just enforcing the IPMC.
Would this have an effect on, excuse the term, single-family homeowner with 5 bedrooms and 2 people? They want to start taking in boarders as
Yeah, they could, I mean, the 2 roomers goes away.
open season for them. And they still have to get a rental license, right? Other questions about occupancy and ADU changes?
Nothing makes me want to give one of my little speeches more than improving our ability to share housing, but I'll resist. I'm super supportive.
Cool.
Same.
Okay, the item we've all been waiting for, plant-based food. Any discussion?
People want me to reread what the proposal was?
Do they want us to pass a resolution or?
Just need a recommendation.
Yeah.
Want us to adopt. Adopt plant-based meals as a default catering option, while attendees can still choose meat and dairy options if they prefer. They're adopting an approach, which seems to me to be what we're already doing. Like Tiffany does a great job of providing plant-based solutions with. You disagree?
Yes.
And what?
Oh,
Elaborate.
I think the purpose of the proposal from Hannah Davis is you just reread it, so.
I'm just
Yeah, I
reading
think-
your email
Yeah,
to all of us.
I think the goal of that is to have a plant-based meal as the default. And that if you didn't want to have a plant-based meal, you'd have to opt in to say, oh, can you please make sure there's a meat or dairy option so that I could have that. So that's not what we do now. What we do now is like full of meat and dairy. And you could go and selectively just take plant-based options out of that. But that's a very different thing than saying, having the meals by default just be plant-based.
And plant-based doesn't even include cheese or anything, does it? Right.
That's dairy. So dairy is not plant-based.
Right. So
I'm opposed to the extent it increases the burden on the city of Boulder to feed us. I don't think that's even necessary to begin with. We're all volunteers here. And if the city now has to go through menus and Tiffany has to spend her time figuring out whether something's plant-based or not, that's probably not a great use of her time. I don't know. If it is practical, then fine.
I absolutely agree. And I just, from the sounds of it today, it sounds like we have some more weighty issues to deal with here. So I just, I don't support it because I just don't think it makes sense. I don't think it's been an issue in any meeting. And certainly Tiffany's done a great job as far as that goes. So I don't see the need for it.
I'd like to make a counter argument that I think it's a fantastic proposal and that we should adopt it. I think that she makes a great point about the environmental impact of the factory farm foods that we eat and that we consume. And I think it's just it might be symbolic in a way, but I think it's a nice way to communicate support with another advisory board. It's a nice way to communicate that we actually care about the environment. We're putting our mouth where our mouth is, maybe. I don't know. What's that? So I if people want to opt in for meat options, that's I don't feel like that's too hard. But I don't mean to talk glibly about something that might add extra burden to Tiffany or other admins.
Can we have Tiffany, if it would be a problem for Tiffany?
No, it wouldn't be a problem. I can always start sending out a week ahead of time where I plan to order from and kind of put that out there as far as options, and people can let me know if they are wanting me to order any of the meat options from whatever location I'm gonna order from. It would just require any of those people that want to opt in to make sure you get back to me by whatever deadline I include in the email.
So if we were to take today for an example, right? People would have to opt in for the chicken or the beef or the cheese, right?
Or the tzatziki. Tzatziki's all yogurt.
Yogurt, yeah.
But a lot of it is plant-based already, like.
Right.
For the people who are vegan or vegetarian, I thought there's always been options. Like you've done a great job of accommodating people's.
Right, but we can just always, if going more plant-based, I can up the plant-based and decrease protein, the meat options. It's always something that's a possibility. So I don't mind looping everybody into where we're ordering from if you want to do that.
I would just add that it's not necessarily for vegans or for vegetarians. It's for the idea is not to turn us all into vegans and vegetarians. It's to have environmentally more sustainable foods at these events. And so you see that I eat the chicken and the gyro meat, and I think it's delicious and wonderful, but I also recognize that it's not healthy for the environment. So to me, it's just about like, let's try to lift up more sustainable options.
I think it's a symbolic measure that's not gonna affect the way we actually eat. I agree with the viewpoint that it'd be nice to support another board that had the effort and the outreach, and I would entertain a motion of this.
My only concern about having a motion, I could see a cynical person saying Boulder Housing Advisory Board votes to feed itself plant-based diet. And they're not actually focused on housing issues, these crazy liberals in Boulder, you know, this is, when people criticize what we're concerned with in Boulder, maybe this is one of them.
Or maybe maybe the headline will be the other direction, like all the boards really care about where they live. And they've decided to not only take the bus to the meetings, but eat plant-based.
I propose we take the money we spend on food and send it to the Affordable Housing Fund. How about that?
I don't second that. Well, maybe we don't need a motion.
It's on the way here.
On your bike.
We talked about it, we support the goals and move on.
I'm sorry, what's the
motion is no motion. It's more of a consensus that we support the goals and we don't need a policy statement on this because it's not housing. So we're moving on.
But we can authorize Tiffany to do more plant-based ordering.
But then do we need to do a motion?
There you go.
We can be informal on that.
Do we need to express to the other board that we support their motives to? be
Maybe
more
we do a motion
sustainable?
to vest the authority in food and Tiffany. And we won't give her criticism.
Let me say this, we could, well, something that would be very easy to do is just, everyone send an email to Tiffany saying what your preference is for these meals. And I think if, I would personally like to be able to like, say, I support this, thing that Hannah Davis emailed us, and that I've shown that support by emailing Tiffany that I'm gonna opt in for plant-based.
You could make a motion.
It puts a lot of burden on each one of us to like respond to. Like, then it's much more individual votes. I think there's something symbolic about saying.
True, okay, I agree.
HAB is supportive of the Environmental Advisory Board's plant-based default approach for food in our meetings.
Very good.
That seems pretty basic, pretty clear.
I would second a motion if you want to make a motion out of that.
Please.
I'm gonna make a motion that the Housing Advisory Board express our support to the Environmental Advisory Board by adopting a plant-based default approach for food at our meetings. Parentheses that might include some meat there on a limited basis.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Against?
Abstain.
Then
5-4 to abstention, is that right? The motion passes. Which brings us to item C on matters from the board. This is something that I thank Chip for taking the initiative to suggest. And I mentioned it earlier, it would be to do a HAB quarterly update to council. We think it would be great to have more presence before council. I think we have a good relationship with council, but to actually have a member of HAB once a quarter or 4 times a year rather, go to council, take our 3-minute public council comment period and say, this is what we've been doing. We're working on a recommendation on to increase the supply of permanent supportive housing. That's just an example. This is what you can be expecting to hear from us in the next few months. This is what we think we've accomplished in the last few months. It'd be, I think, great to have more of a public presence before council. It might get more people attending our meetings. So
I'm supportive. I'd like to clarify 2 things. One is I think that it shouldn't be the same person presenting. I think it should rotate.
No,
And if somebody doesn't want to, then obviously they don't have to, but it shouldn't be like I'm always presenting or.
That is exactly.
And then I think the second thing is that I think that HAB should draft and approve what the person says so that it isn't just one of us ad-libbing what we think we've done. That it should be somewhat scripted.
I agree with that.
I agree.
I think it'd be like the third month of each, we need to set like a meeting. And then one of the agenda items is let's agree on what the statement should be, vote on it or whatever, and then pick the person and they go to the next council meeting or something like that. That should be an agenda item.
I agree. I think it's more likely to happen.
Yeah,
I like that.
okay.
Or
sounds like-
maybe a person volunteers and says, hey, I want to be the next presenter, and this is what I propose, and then we talk about it, because otherwise, who does that drafting fall to? Is it Jay or Michael or? So I think if somebody wants to volunteer and say, I'll be the first one, this is what I'd like to say. And then maybe it gets included in the packet and we all kind of edit it around.
If it's a quarterly update, maybe that person volunteers like 3 months ahead of time, so they're on notice during all of our meetings to like take notes, and then they're on the hot seat at that third meeting to say, all right, this is what I've collected or something like that.
Is city council accepting public comment in person right now? There.
You get 2 minutes though.
Too?
And we got two.
If we could lobby for an extra minute.
Talk really fast.
No, we just have to be
You can
very
always
succinct.
pull time. You can pull time. That requires 2 people to show up.
I'm hearing consensus that this is a worthy idea. Can we perhaps translate that into a motion?
No.
Is that needed?
All right, I'll make a motion that about once a quarter or 4 times a year, a member of HAB, a rotating member of HAB will present to city council what we've been focused on, and the speech that they give will be discussed and approved prior to the presentation to city council.
Second.
Any discussion? I would just add, let's make it quarterly and no equivocation.
And do we want to set it like in the month of March, in the month of June, in the month of September, in the month of December, someone will present to council? And then we kind of have to have that discussion probably the month before, because we meet on the 3rd. I don't know, is there a council meeting?
No, I'd
on
like
the
to
4th?
have maximum flexibility. If you find yourself having a meeting in middle of March and then the second city council meeting gets postponed, might as well do it the first week of April rather than,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, I don't think we need to overstipulate. It's a good intent, and I'm sure we can get it done.
So should we start with, I guess, our first quarterly, maybe we add like our first quarterly update agenda item, like we block off time in our March meeting of next year to discuss what our quarterly update to council will be or
Well,
something.
let's say we have a great meeting discussion in January. We may want to put together a summary at the February meeting and present it. And how often does that council meet? Twice a month, and present it in February. So if like what Philip says is we're too regimented and prescripted, then we may miss opportunities. So maybe it's a minimum of 4 times a year as opposed to like a maximum of 4 times a year, because if we have 6 or 8 great meetings and we're like, city council, you really need to know what we talked about, I don't think there's a downside.
Can I make a meta comment, like a more general comment? And that is to say, I'm totally for this, and I like what you just said as well. But also just as a kind of a more general statement, I have found members of city council to be extremely receptive to individual meetings and to phone calls and to walks in the park and, so like they're really accessible. So like if you have specific members that you want to get an ear with, have time to reach out to them. They're very, and in fact, thinking of Ryan Schuhard, whose newsletter always includes his office hours. He has office hours every week. So that's it. So I just wanted to encourage people along those lines. And then also that city council meetings are interesting and fun and to just encourage people to go whenever they want.
Can I clarify something though?
Yeah.
Like, if one of us has a really hot topic that we want to discuss with an individual city council member, I think it needs to be clear that that's an individual who
Oh,
just
yeah,
happens
for
to
sure,
sit
for
on
sure,
HAB.
for sure.
Whereas what I think we're
I think what I was just
proposing-
saying is
yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit tangential.
Yeah,
Well, and to piggyback on what Karen said, all of us are citizens and we can talk to our elected officials all we want. But when we get together and we debate and we disagree and we vote and we agree on something, and then we speak collectively, the board, even if it's not unanimous, that is a stronger message to our policymakers. It carries the weight of the board, the weight of deliberation, the weight of public comment. And that's something we can really leverage as a collective body to get things done. So idea I have is, what if we've just made a regular agenda item in every meeting? Do we want to send a update to city council? Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to send it that week, but is there anything from today's meeting that we want to put in our next update? And for example, at the end of today's meeting, it could be, we like this 550-foot rule or whatever, something, just one thing. And that doesn't necessarily mean we're sending Corinne there next week, but in 3 months from now, that's on the list of things that we want to include. And maybe to that flexible approach, just having a segment at every meeting where we talk about that could be a good idea. I don't know.
Okay, I think we might need to extrude that motion a little bit to get some of these ideas.
Try again. All right.
Yes, I think they're good ideas.
The goal is for HAB to present to city council at least 4 times a year. The presenter will rotate so that it's not the same HAB board member. And the HAB member will say a pre-approved verbiage. Prepared statement. At each board meeting, we will add to the agenda, a section that says that might add something from the meeting that we would want to share with council. So it wasn't very succinct, but.
Second,
I think you caught it.
I second your motion.
Second every word of it.
It's all in the transcript. So.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Danny, you?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously, exactly as you said it.
Or if someone wants to reword it, that's fine too.
Okay, we're
You're
on
on your
to
too, Karen. Let's keep going.
listening session ideas. Corinne is correct. We're supposed to discuss that in October, but we'll discuss it now. I guess this is a pretty open item on the agenda. We've talked about a few ideas in the past, but maybe we can start firming them up. I think it's also worth discussing, before we jump in, the effectiveness of listening sessions. This is something we really want to do, and if we do, how can we do it well?
So I'll start with kind of my idea of it. I just think that it's kind of multi-layered. So as we, an advisory board, get together to talk about housing type of things and advise city council, there's got to be another layer below that, right? It's below, but another layer of people in the town that we are representing about housing. But so what, we all have ideas what we think housing has to, what we should be paying attention to, what city council should be paying attention to, but what about others that don't have the opportunity to be currently serving on some sort of advisory board or city council? And so what our other residents of Boulder think that we, and therefore city council, should be paying attention to in regards to housing? So I think it would be good to be able to have a listening center session and just invite that conversation. And I don't know, to be honest, if it's just as general as like, so what do you think about housing and what should we be addressing? Or if we should be specific about, I don't know, if we should be specific, but open it up. And I think when we talked about this idea a while ago, one of the thoughts was to plan something out like 3 or 4 months out, because then the community, I think Jay, you were mentioning the community liaison could help us kind of get the word out to people to just kind of expand. It's like people can come and speak at our meetings, but wouldn't it be great if it was more conversation?
I agree with you 100%. I think we need to have a topic in order to get the word out. If it's just like housing listening session, I don't know if that's like every one of our public comments, but if it was a listening session on homelessness and that was advertised, or is listening session on landlord tenant or middle income housing, but I think we need a topic in order to
Focus.
attract people, yeah, to actually come in.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So we've discussed at previous meetings the goal of getting more participation from the public.
Mhm.
And so like today, we got a live body as opposed to a Zoom. And one of the goals was to sort of figure out, will there be enough people who show up to have their voice be heard? So I guess how is what we're trying to do by opening up our meetings different than a listening session? And so some of it may be just the quantity of people that we think is going to show up, or are you anticipating that like there would be some more back and forth? So like if Lynn made a comment, we would respond and have a dialogue. And if Mark made a comment, then we would question and answer. Whereas right now, it's basically we're listening, but we don't respond, we don't engage. So tell me a little bit about those two different, like
Yeah.
how is what you're proposing different than what we're doing?
I guess I envision it more as a conversation, right? So Mark gives input on says something about, I think we should be paying more attention to, I don't know, tenant protections or something like that. And then we can say, well, what do you mean by that? Is that affordability? Is that evictions? Is it, what do you mean? What are you hearing out there in your connections or the rental tenant committee thing? And so more of a conversation, not necessarily to solve anything at that point, but to be able to just understand a little bit more what others think are issues with housing or things that we should be paying attention to, and therefore city council.
And you don't think they feel comfortable to present now?
Well, I think the public, the open forum, they have 3 minutes and they speak and we don't respond. Every once in a while, somebody might respond by asking something, but it's not a conversation. It's typically people are prepared with their points and what they want to say because they know they have 3 minutes.
I think a lot of
And
it.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
the last thing I was going to say, I have no idea if anybody would show up, but I think it's important to be able to offer it and try and promote it.
Think about that.
The thing that comes to mind to piggyback on is the Boulder Valley Comp Plan is launching, right? It's renewal. And part of that is a pretty robust civic engagement. And I am wondering if there might be opportunity to sort of go to some of these Boulder Valley Comp Plan events and have presence there to say, this topic here that is being discussed, do we want to have a conversation about it? Let's have a meeting, invite from a bigger conversation that's happening in the whole community that's already structured and organized and launching, to find the subjects that would make sense to bring to have, but you would have an opportunity to go to an event and, present the opportunity to kind of a captive audience. It's already, they're interested. They want to participate in some way. And I think it would also, it's a win-win because this would provide a different kind of input than what the structure of the BVCP public engagement is already doing. This would, I think, provide a unique and potentially more robust, as you're talking about, that it's actually a dialogue, not just a pin your comment up on the wall type of thing. So I think it's a brilliant idea, and it could enhance something that the city is already launching.
Well, that's a great point. I'd like to piggyback on. I would hate to have an event that was a distraction from what they're trying to do. And it maybe makes sense to have us coordinate and think about how, and that's just distraction, but there's also an aspect of it where, like, if 100 people came and they were passionate and it was hours of community feedback and engagement, and yet then at the end of the day, we're sort of like, well, all we do is make recommendations to city council. We don't really, maybe you should have gone to the BVCP event where they're actually,
I don't think it should be, you're right, it shouldn't be in competition, but all I'm saying is that could be a source for finding the population and the conversation.
Yeah.
Attend that,
Yeah.
and then say, anybody wants to continue this conversation. And we are, a board in the city that deals with housing, and just give an opportunity, a little pathway for a more robust conversation about specific things that, this board might want to be engaged in.
So brainstorming this a little bit, I think the goal of a listening session is our goal. What do we want to get out of it? And every meeting we raise a lot of questions that are hard to answer. Current one from this meeting is, how do we ensure affordability as part of zoning prescriptions in a way that is practical? Council will listen. So we could do something on that. Another possibility, and I think to make things concrete for them to work in my mind, is maybe we'd have, I think we invite people to attend these sessions, so we don't just wait for people to show up. We figure out like who is the audience that we need to hear, and actually say, you've got to come and tell us what you're thinking. It's really important to us. And it doesn't have to be 100, it could be a focus group. But 10 is a lot more than we've ever gotten in person at a meeting. That would be a significant accomplishment. Maybe it's a roundtable with housing developers. We're gonna probably have some in to our January meeting to talk about office conversions of the housing. Maybe it's the missing middle conversation, and I'm always fascinated when I talk to people more in Chip's age group who are buying homes in Boulder, and they're not like Google billionaires. How are they doing it? And what are the challenges they're trying to overcome? A young couple that's buying a house in Alpine, like, wow, they can actually swing that by leveraging every technique you can imagine. So we could possibly benefit from more of that. There were questions that came up tonight about what's the effectiveness of deed restricted for sale affordable housing. There's certainly plenty of people who live in that type of housing that we could have in and have a conversation with, in addition to the folks that administer those kinds of programs. So there's just some examples. I would think that it would need to be a pretty concrete subject with not an invite only, but we would want to invite the people who want to come.
Can I jump in, or
Sure.
who spoke last?
I don't know. I'll go after you.
Okay. I think for it to be successful, we need to plan it a few months out so that we can get the word out and there's publicity so that people actually show up. And it needs to be a topic that's somewhat hot and controversial. Otherwise, if it's too technical, I don't know if we're gonna get robust participation. And I know I keep going back to this subject, and it's a subject that mankind will probably never solve. But I would like to do a listening session on homelessness. I'm sure you've all seen the tents along Canyon. I walk my dog along the creek every other night. And right now there are tents parked right behind the Boulder Justice Center. And I don't know if you know the Boulder Justice Center, but the backside along the creek is where all the judges have their chambers. So all the judges sit down at their desks and they look out at tents of homeless people sitting along the creek. And I'd say on average, about 30 people are summoned to court each week in Boulder to be evicted. Almost all of them, the vast majority, live in permanently affordable housing. That signals to me that these people are leaving subsidized housing because they cannot afford, or they're not able to pay their subsidized rent for whatever reason. And for a lot of them, if they can't come up with the money or they're not eligible for emergency rental assistance, the next step is some form of homelessness, whether that's moving in with family or friends or being on the streets or in a shelter. It's an issue. It's an issue that is always going to be an issue we're not going to be able to solve. But I think there's good reason to listen to people about it. I think there's a lot of opinions. There may be controversial ones. You might hear from people who want them all rounded up and thrown in jail, which I don't support. But like, I think it is important that we engage with the community on this issue and see how are people feeling about it. And that's a lot to take on, but you know, we do live in one of the wealthiest communities in America, and we do have a sizable homeless population. And I think it's just something worth listening to, and I think it's something that could potentially attract public participation. So those are my thoughts there. I think if we publicized a listening session on homelessness, the Boulder Housing Advisory Board will be conducting a listening session on homelessness on X date. And maybe we do that at council chambers. So move all of our meetings there, but do it in a more central location that people are familiar with. Maybe we'll learn something new and we can factor that into our decision making down the road.
So interesting thoughts. How would everybody feel?
Oh,
Karen was next.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I have a question for Jay. Like, every board I've ever been on has public participation that's like limited to 3 minutes, and there is no back and forth interaction discussion. So is that like Robert's rules? Is that like a board rule? Or like, is there anything we need to do to switch from 3 minutes, no interaction to like a listening session that would be more interactive?
Like the first 15 minutes of the meeting or
I don't know. I've just
I don't
never
think it's
had.
an issue yet because we don't have when we have too many people, like then today we had 2 participants.
Like, what I'm trying to ask is there some
we do this?
rule? Is there some rule with?
You can ask questions. You can have a conversation.
Okay,
I would recommend keeping a 3-minute limit. Otherwise, the person's going to keep talking.
okay. But
Potentially.
then we're allowed to respond or ask questions. There's no prohibition to that. Okay, so that's point number 1.
You still have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, public.
Okay, so then point number 2 is you had mentioned like, maybe we do this topic, maybe we do that topic, maybe we target the people that we want to come and speak, which in my mind is much more like creating a panel discussion to educate the board on various topics. So what I'm trying to figure out is if we're going to do this listening session, are we inviting people to talk, or are we just publicizing it and saying, hey, this is the topic that we're going to talk about. Anybody, whether you're an expert or not, can come participate. And I don't necessarily need an answer, but I think we should think about it because I love our panel discussions where we are learning from experts and then forming opinions about what we might want to suggest to city council, as opposed to, I think what you're saying, which is we just want the general public to feel like they have a voice. And so I think those are two different things. And then with regards to what you're saying, I respectfully, completely disagree. I do not want to talk about homelessness. Like the Chambers talked about homelessness. The All Roads has talked about homelessness. There's like a lot of people that are talking about homelessness, and that gets into so many issues that have nothing to do with housing. So if we want to have another panel on housing solutions for homelessness, I'm very supportive, but I don't think this is the forum for mental health, addiction, judicial, like all the other topics that relate to housing. So is it important? Absolutely, but I don't think that's the forum for this board.
I agree, and I would also vote no on a proposal to that. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that.
We're gonna run out of time, so I'm gonna ask for kind of a straw consensus poll on whether we should pursue listening sessions in 2025, a listening session. And following that up with, we need a dedicated agenda item and probably a lot of time to discuss it, like 45 minutes on format, topic, and is it by invite or open to the general public, or some combination of thereof, where we make sure we get the people we want in the room and other people also welcome. I think the first step is to come to some agreement that we want to pursue it.
Can I ask a question of Jay?
Mhm.
So have ever done a listening session?
Yes.
I was there, it was so long ago, I don't really remember what was discussed.
Danny, you were there. Could
Can
you
you
speak
tell
on?
us?
Yeah, we had
Was
several
it
listening
useful?
sessions. We had one on the notion of what steps could be taken to make housing affordable housing more affordable. We had another listening session which was excellent on tiny homes. I really the whole notion of a listening session. So first of all, Robert's rules are going to be modified because it's not quasi judicial. It's really just a kind of open session. That's why you call it a listening session. The way that we've always done it, and the way that I think is the most effective, and some of these were pretty good. One turned into a little bit of a free for all, but the way we've always done it is you have a couple of people maybe from different perspectives talk on an issue. It could be homelessness, it could be whatever else it is, right? So you have people who are, involved in it, experts in it, whatever, talk about it, but then you want the public there to have a robust conversation with them. And the most effective listening session that we've had, and I've brought this up before, is when we all got off of the dais over by, city council room back then, and just did a kind of round table, sat in chairs right with everybody right in the middle, and had a great conversation about tiny homes and exactly how they were utilized, et cetera, et cetera. And it can be very effective, but it's absolutely got to be open to the public, because that's the whole notion of it, is that you have an open public forum where you're providing some information, and then you're trying to get information from the public, usually people who are have an issue near and dear to their hearts. So if it's rentals, then you want to have robust conversation for people who are renting, et cetera, maybe landlords, whatever it is. But the whole notion of a listening session is that public aspect of it, and it's entirely different. So the Robert's rules, it's absolute. We should not, during the public comment, get involved in conversations with people during those 3 minutes. That's just a simple part of Robert's rules. It's for every body that has local hearings like that. But in terms of a listening session, that's our opportunity where we can have that conversation, we can have that dialogue, we can go delve deeper into something, et cetera. And we're inviting people to be there for that specific topic and that topic only. And that's another big part of it, right? One of the reasons why we have that limit on the public comment is because we have an agenda that we have to get to, right? And it's just an opportunity to, state your piece, whatever it may be. So I think opening it up to the public, having a speaker or two who can kind of, at least lay the groundwork for a hearty conversation, and then open it up to dialogue with the public is absolutely the best way to go about it. And that's the way we've done it in the past. Pretty cool.
So I feel like a broken record. I mean, you guys have been going around in circles on this topic for a long time, meeting after meeting, it seems like. So my suggestion, again, come up with a topic. first. And then figure out, then you can work through the logistics of how a listening session would work, who you want there, how to organize it. It's just, you're trying to organize a study session without a specific topic. It's really difficult.
I agree.
I move the board to schedule a listening session on homelessness in the first 6 months of 2025.
I vote no. I'd prefer a different
Need a
topic.
second or not?
Oh, I won't.
I'll second it. Just to have the conversation at least.
And in support of it, there's no board. I understand it's a tricky issue and I don't think we're going to solve it. I don't think any governments always try to solve it and they don't. I'm not aware of an advisory board that advises the city council on homelessness. And to the extent that, you know, in Boulder, people like to say unhoused now, that is, we are the housing advisory board. And from my observations, it's a housing issue. There's mental health aspects to it, of course, there's policing aspects to it, of course. I don't think we're going to be making recommendations to city council on how to police people, but I think listening to the public on this issue is important. And if we're going to have a successful listening session where people show up, I think it's homelessness. I think that's something that would attract people. I don't know of a more pressing issue that catches people's attention that we'd be able to publicize. And in my opinion, a successful listening session would be one that people attend.
I would suggest as an alternative topic that we focus on solutions for affordable middle income so that we can attract and retain families. And how can we do it? What are some tools? What have some other cities done? Again, I don't think we're the forum for homelessness. I think the shelters already had study sessions about it. I think if you're really interested in it, you should volunteer at All Roads because that's what they do. And
But they don't advise city council.
yes, they do. They're working
they're-
with city council all the time
But we're
with
in,
housing. and
but what I mean by
and-
that, and they may be in communication, but we are an advisory board. You know, our legislative mission, which is the directive of city council through the ordinance, is to advise on housing issues. And I think it's one of the pressing housing issues. I agree with you that we should also do a listening session on everything you mentioned. We need to start with one topic.
So we did a panel on housing solutions for homelessness, right? And we had BHP present
But
and
that's
we had
different
Element
in
present.
a listening session,
This is public
right? Like
comment.
the panel thing, what Danny was just, I think Danny was just differentiating. The panel is great because we invite from a few different, whatever, expertise areas. And they present information which informs us about what we could potentially advise to city council, right? But what the listening session is people who are like people of the public, so people that are potentially experiencing homelessness or have, or whatever, just have some opinions or ideas coming in to talk about the experiences, and maybe somebody has some brilliant idea on how we can solve it.
Or someone's
That's a little
had some
exaggerating, but
lived
somebody has some-
experience that opens our eyes to something. I don't know, I'm okay sitting there listening with no agenda. You know,
Okay, we have a motion on the table. We have 15 minutes left. And I'm gonna suggest we vote on this. If it does not pass, I would certainly hope to entertain a different motion next month with some specifics that will make it compelling.
yeah, so to restate my motion, which Danny seconded, I propose that we host a listening session that we publicize and we host at city council chambers on the issue of homelessness in the first 6 months of 2025.
Any second to that? If that
Yeah.
stands. Yes. Okay, all in favor? We got 4 in favor, all against. Motion passes 4-3.
Actually, no, I'm I'm gonna abstain So I only have a couple months left on this, and so I
Oh.
think you guys have a deadlock. I'm sorry.
Okay. Which means we can't move forward with it, correct? It's not right away.
Danny? What does that mean?
Yes.
What does that mean if there's a tie?
Well, I think we can have a revote. We can modify it. I think maybe here's what I would support. Is if we and you know when you guys could lead the charge on this, but come up with a specific proposal for a listening session on homelessness to be decided at the next meeting, which I guess is January. And I guess that would be something that I would vote yes for. That way everybody has a chance to talk about what it is rather than have a very broad kind of mandate that we're imposing on ourselves before we really know what it is. Because there seems to be, a lot of misgivings on that. We obviously have a split board. So I think maybe if we talk about specifically what we're going to talk about and how it ties to some of the issues that some of the other people have some concerns about, then we could get a resolution. So that would be my suggestion, is that, we
Can I make a counter proposal?
January.
I think the motion failed. It's 3-3.
Well, it's either tabled or failed.
Well, no, an affirmative vote of a majority of the quorum present is required to pass a motion approving any action, except a motion approving a recommendation to city council, which this is not. A motion approving a recommendation to city council requires an affirmative vote of the majority of regular board members. An affirmative vote of the majority of quorum present is required to pass a motion. So a majority of people present is required to pass a motion that's not a recommendation. If it's a recommendation to council, then we need a majority of members. So you need 4 people to pass a motion to recommend something to council. And then we just need a majority of the quorum, which I believe is
We have full quorum.
but everyone's here.
So yeah, so that the motion definitely didn't pass, but my suggestion is if you want to modify it, Skip, just to say, we'll come up with a specific proposal at the next meeting for the listening session on homelessness, then I would vote in favor of that.
How about a new motion saying just that?
So,
What?
wait, what about a
No,
motion?
I don't want to
What if-
burn time on it if people are opposed.
What if we make a motion that says we are at the next board meeting, we're gonna have a discussion about a listening session. And we're gonna figure out what topic we're gonna do, and it may be homelessness, it may be middle income, but we'll hash it out at the next meeting.
If
So
people-
everybody should come to the meeting with the topic, like if your
I
topic
won't bring
was-
up
wait,
homelessness again
wait,
because
wait.
it lost.
Well, let's put it this way.
Unless
if
we
you
get a new
said-
member on the board, and then maybe I
Yeah,
will.
if you said homeless housing solutions, I might be more open, but I don't want to have a discussion about mental health issues and encampments and
Right.
judicial issues, like it needs to be housing.
And that's
focused.
why I abstained, because it is very broad right now and it doesn't really specify what we're doing. And I think in terms of the comedy between board members to come up with something specific and say, this is what it is before they make a decision, makes a lot of sense. That's why I'll move I'll second Karen's motion to say we are going to decide at January what we will have a listening session on, including homelessness and any other topic proposed. And we'll come out of the January meeting with a decision on what that listening session will be and a date that everybody feels comfortable with.
We're going to, Jay.
Yes, shall.
So I think voting and disagreeing is a very productive thing for us to do. And I'm glad this is how we communicate and have conversations as a
So
board.
I would advocate that everybody come to the January meeting with a topic or two for a listening session. That might include, like, is it gonna be a panel with the public or just the public?
A
What are the
listening
topics?
session. I just want to clarify, I think that is an important distinction.
So there won't be any experts, it's just us listening.
If someone talks about something off topic, we give them their 3 minutes politely, and maybe we don't engage as much,
Like Jay wanted to,
think-
raised his hand.
Jay,
I don't think we have a full hour to spend talking about this again at the January meeting.
yeah,
So we skipped over an agenda item, which was going over the work plan. It'd be great to have a little bit of time to share that with the board, because there's a lot coming out next year.
great. So we settled that. I don't even think we need to vote on it. We just want to have an agenda item in January to decide what the heck we're doing.
So that's sort of part of this work plan.
Yeah, okay.
Well, let's talk about that and you guys chairs can decide.
What's the work plan?
And the work plan is what you get in your package every month.
Well, no, we don't, I used to include it in the packet every month.
Oh, they're just,
I've not been doing that for quite some time. But it's what I share with the chairs every month and I keep it updated.
It might be benefit. Is there a reason that we can't include it in the packet?
No, there isn't. I did it for like 2 years
Yeah.
and nobody ever said anything about it or seemed to care. So I stopped doing it because it was an extra step. And I think part of it, part of the frustration I think with the group is we had a slow summer and fall. There really wasn't a lot that was going on. We had a super busy 2023. All those council priorities, there were, was it 9? Sorry, 9 out of the 10 council priorities were related to housing. So there was a lot of things coming to have for recommendation. And we had like an 8-month period where there was nothing. So I think that's part of the group's frustration, I think. But things are picking up again. So again, November, you can see was a pretty busy full meeting. January, again, it's going to be pretty meaty as well. So this whole office conversion discussion, remember that's been a high priority for folks. Michael and right, Karen, you guys have figured out the panel almost.
you want me to quickly review that? So we want to have 3 presenters who are actively engaged or planning to convert commercial properties into housing, talk about the challenges, the costs, what is helpful in the city regulations and codes, what's not helpful. And one of them will be a BHP project near 28th and Iris. Another one would be a proposed conversion in the Whittier neighborhood. The third one we hope would be Bridge House, and because they buy commercial properties and convert them into more of a dorm style housing for their audience. And the example in Boulder is right near the Table Mesa parking ride. So, and we'll probably have someone from BHP on that as well. So it'll be a really good panel, same quality, I think, as our How to House Homeless People that we did a couple of months ago. And we've been reaching out to speakers and they seem to be available and ready to go. And it'll be a really good educational opportunity and conversation.
Can I ask a question about that? Is it going to be limited to converting existing like commercial buildings into residential, or are we also exploring the idea of just like tearing down and a commercial building and building residential?
That's one of the questions we put to the panelists is what's the cost effectiveness of adapting versus starting from scratch? And one of the projects we're looking at is actually half and half.
Yeah.
They're tearing down half the building and renovating the historic.
So it's all the above.
So I think we'll get answers to that.
And then the other piece, Holly Hendrickson from my group is also she wrote a really nice white paper on what other cities across the country are doing and what the current challenges are. So just to give you a little bit of background before that meeting. So I think that would be helpful as well.
Can we also include that Pew Gensler article?
Yep, I sent that to her. I think
Great.
she has sort of a list of resources as well.
Is that the one that was cited in the Boulder, whatever that newspaper article was?
Yeah. Boulder Reporting Lab.
Yeah.
So the other thing, so January still has, we have the DRCOG Regional Housing Needs Assessment. An update, we have someone who's ready to come and present on that. It's kind of meaty as well. That will definitely take some time. There's, I think the 1B funding will be pretty much resolved by then. I can give you an update on that. And then I've added the quarterly update. So that's all for January. And if you want to also talk about study sessions.
Could the DRCOG get moved to February so that we could have, like, if maybe maybe we have a brief discussion about a study session that might end up being in April, and that gives us, like, if we talked about it in January and we sort of blocked out April, so then we're kind of like planning ahead, but that might mean moving DRCOG to February and moving February stuff to March.
Yeah.
I agree. I think
That'll
next
work.
week or next January's topics probably in all the other stuff we talk about, it's, I think doing both in the same is a lot. So I agree with that approach.
So are you asking us to bump the office conversion?
No,
too?
I think we make that the primary discussion point for January, and then, you know, we have all our other things. And then maybe, I agree with you.
And then there are a number of projects that are going into council in the spring. So the impact fee, the Nexus study for scrapes and additions that we've talked about. That report will be available. We'll definitely want you guys to be aware of that and provide feedback. And then the manufactured housing strategy, that is one of the council priorities related to housing. Molly Taylor will come and talk about that before we go to city council. And then we'd also talked about having CU come, Lori Call is available, or someone from our staff would come and talk about all of the things that CU is doing related to housing. And there's some new developments on that front as well. And then there's always upcoming items. So these are just things that have come up over the past, and I try to keep track of them. So everything from listening session topics to there's an affordable homeownership residence survey, which I just was talking about earlier. We're updating that. Actually got pushed a little bit, so it'll go out in January, so it doesn't conflict with some other stuff. But I think you'll find that interesting as well. The housing pipeline we talked about. You know, affordable market, what is the target, what is being left out. So these are just ideas that get thrown out there by the chairs and other people, and I do keep track of it. What else? There's we talked about a parking meeting with planning board and TAB. So lots of things. There's no shortage of things to talk about. And then down below, city housing projects initiatives. Of course, the comp plan is really big. Regional housing partnership, Carl's project you just heard about. Area 3 planning reserve. And then there will be a homelessness update to council in January. So as well as behavioral health.
From whom?
From city staff. So it's the annual update to council. And
February 13th.
Is it February 13th? Thank you.
I understand it's scheduled.
And I always encourage you to definitely listen to those, because I always know out as well. So that's the work plan.
Yep.
There's a lot coming up.
And a lot
I just
coming up.
wanted you to be aware of all of it.
Great, thank you, Jay. Well, still have matters from staff, which I hope we can cover quickly. The one-page summary and the December 4th event.
Well, the recruitment is another one. So Michael mentioned this, so the applications will be open, I believe, early December, and they close January 31st. So keep that in mind, that deadline.
We just need one more vote to do a listening session.
And then everybody got the invite for December 4th. I think about half of you have RSVP, the other half have not. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Philip.
That's December 4th, and I know I have multiple emails, so that's certain ones I check more than others.
You'll get a personal email from us if you don't register.
That's Wednesday, December 4th at
5:30.
5:30.
Facilitated session.
I think you'll like it.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's
Put it in
kind
my
of a
calendar.
celebration, but it's also a way to interact with all the different housing and human services boards and commissions. And understanding what their role is H2O. I think will be very interesting, and also talking about housing and human services, what our mission is, what our work plan is, moving forward. And then getting some feedback from you as well, like we're contemplating this concept of an annual report that's more like a story map, something a little more interesting, interactive, visual. We'll talk about that as well.
Is that different than the party for board members?
Mhm.
So there's something on the 3rd and on the 4th.
The party for board members on the
Hear
third?
about a party for board members.
You might be talking about the same thing. Let me look at that.
It was like this, all the board members related to housing and,
That's what.
so that's on the 4th. Okay, I think I had it on the 3rd. Okay, thank you.
Okay, okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'm moving on to debriefing the meeting. A very productive meeting. It was a full attendance. We had our first public meeting and we did have one public attendee and one online commenter. We had a really good session with Carl Geiler on family-friendly vibrant neighborhoods, and we made specific recommendations. The general endorsement with some tweaks for the material that was presented. We were able to have a robust discussion about that. We heard an update on occupancy and ADU changes required by state law, which will be going into effect, looks like mid-2025. We discussed doing a HAB member quarterly update to council. They'll be rotating among HAB members and came up with a framework for that. We accepted the Environmental Advisory Board's recommendation to try harder to eat plant-based food. And we put listening session ideas on the agenda for January with a general agreement that we should do some in 2025. I think that was everything we covered. Any questions, or do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for your time. Good meeting.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye, Danny.
Hi, Danny. Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.